Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us. This is the Aspen City Council work session for October 17th, 2023. Tonight on our agenda is more 2024 budget review. On our agenda this evening is Kids First, the Wheeler Opera House, Red Brick Arts, Parks, Golf, Tourism Promotion, Public Education, and our debt service. With that, do you want to start?
I'm going to hand it over to Matt, and we will bring up your first department for you after probably reviewing any supplementals from last meeting.
So these are my two entries into the photo contest.
Ooh.
As well, I'll give full credit to my wife.
And I believe she's joining us now,
Yeah,
perhaps?
so she works with Nancy and Megan at Kids First. So
Okay.
she's also a city employee.
Yeah.
So those are the two entries and that's Independence Pass from about 2 weekends ago.
Well, should we just stop the competition?
Yeah, let's get back to budget work.
Okay. So last night we had 3 supplementals presented from the Housing Development Fund, and just wanted to know if there were additional questions on those or any other follow-up questions for information we can bring back to you.
Can't stop looking at the photo. What did you say?
Matt, are those the only supplementals you have on your list, or is there another slide?
Those were the only 3 from last night, so utilities did not have any supplemental requests.
Wasn't Lumberyard 14 1/4 on last night's, or am I blanking?
Capital project, but not a supplemental request.
And certainly those are, anything's in purview for
Yeah.
the council to make decisions on.
Great.
Item C, there was a lot of conversation last night. Is that coming back to us with anything? What struck me is maybe that maybe we need to confer with our representative to the coalition and talk about some of the maybe guardrails that we want to set up is kind of what I heard. So is that something that is coming out of last night's meeting, is to have more discussion for future? I know that last night what was said was that any budgeting approval before a check is written, if you will, that it will come back to us in some form. But maybe there's work to do ahead of that to communicate to our representative some expectations.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, you are correct. So the budget adoption would put the placeholder appropriation in the budget. It does not authorize the spend of the dollars at this time. So I think Sarah alluded to the aspect that we could do either a resolution or an agreement and a contract with the coalition, I guess is what we're calling them. At that time, you'd have that control over whether to proceed or not. I do think Jen is also doing some additional follow-up and review and some outreach on the program and some of the questions that the council brought up last night.
Thank you. Council, any other items there?
I just wanted to say, for the record, I also support knowing more about expectations with this $450,000. Yeah, I have a lot of questions about how it's going to be used and how we can keep our workers in those homes that we are attempting to buy down.
Yeah, and in that regard, West Mountain, let's just call it West Mountain. I'm really interested in going forward with transparency and open meetings.
Thanks. Okay.
All right. With that, Kids First is first up tonight.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having us here and for this opportunity to share our work with you. I am Megan Monahan.
And I'm Nancy Nichols.
And together we manage Kids First. So we'd like to share the Kids First mission statement with you. In terms of human development, the importance of early childhood education cannot be overstated. A child's early years are the foundation for their future development, providing a strong base for lifelong learning. Well-established research continues to emphasize the importance of early childhood education as an essential building block of a child's future success. This is the why behind all of the work that we do. It drives our goals and our projects. We are so proud to support the young children and families and child care providers in our community. One major strategic focus area to highlight is safe and lived-in communities of choice, and this includes opportunities to access child care. Over the last year, we've had new leadership with Nancy and I stepping forward. It's been a seamless transition, building on our strong existing relationships and creating new bonds. We focused on meeting with child care directors and other partners and having authentic conversations around their needs and dreams. Teacher recruitment and retention is a core component necessary to increasing child care quality and capacity. Without early childhood educators, there's no child care. Some of the programs that we have designed to support these educators include wage enhancement. This puts $500 every month into teachers' pockets. Teachers were able to use these increased wages to pay for medical bills, rent, and student loans, among other things. The child care programs in the Yellow Brick also received a rent waiver from City Council, so thank you. One school is using extra funds to rent housing for staff, and others paying for English classes to support Spanish-speaking teachers. And the VIP program is an educator incentive program that's paid out 2 times a year based on professional development that teachers engage in. The average teacher who applied at each deadline received approximately $1,000, so that's $1,000 twice a year. And the total program payment to date is just under $116,000. One of the advantages of the Kids First Fund is that we can be nimble. In May, we discovered that there were 24 children with high risk factors that were going to be without child care over the summer. This was because the state funding was dropping off. So we were able to designate funds for those children who would otherwise not be in structured care. So this is one of those innovative funding opportunities. And on growing capacity, the new program in the Yellow Brick Building, Ajax Cubs, provides childcare 5 days a week. It's closed only 11 weekdays out of the year. And they have 3 classrooms open. They're serving 25 additional families. And without our support, Kids First capacity expansion grants, rent relief, and wage enhancement, it wouldn't have been possible. These wins have had immediate impact on children, teachers, families, and quality in childcare. So looking ahead, our first project supporting increasing childcare capacity is the Burlingame Early Childhood Education Center. The land use application was deemed complete, and we are waiting for scheduling before the Planning and Zoning Commission. City Council, you are all the final decision maker in the land use review process. We are working towards saving up our contribution towards the estimated $19 million construction cost for that project. As we all know, our workforce requires childcare throughout the valley, and so we've partnered with regional childcare organizations to advocate for and push increasing childcare capacity and quality along the Parachute to Aspen corridor. One of the big efforts is an initiative to create a special taxing district from Parachute to Aspen, and this special taxing district would support early childhood education in the 3-county region. Additionally, we anticipate supporting 1 program in town and 3 Mid-Valley programs that are in development to increase capacity. This goal is focused on community engagement locally and throughout the Roaring Fork Valley. taking care of children requires taking care of their teachers. And we know that without teachers, there is no childcare. Our second compass goal is strengthening early childhood workforce recruitment and retention. This involves evaluating our workforce incentive programs to ensure they're effective and to develop new initiatives. Another component is leadership skills training. So this is training to develop director skills and grow emerging leaders. After collective conversations with child care directors, their feedback indicated that they wanted and needed more training and professional development. So we're providing, promoting, and hunting for innovative solutions to support directors and train teachers to grow into those director roles. We also have Kids First staff supports that we're growing, and these are supports for child care programs. These include our intern program. This is our early childhood educator pipeline program. We also have a resource teacher who substitute teaches in child care classrooms, giving teachers a well-needed break. And our quality improvement coach provides support to teachers and directors to learn and develop skills to feel confident and competent in the classroom, increasing the likelihood that they'll stay in the field, and this prevents turnover. Not the next one yet. We also have a nurse consultant who offers health and safety trainings like CPR first aid, and this person manages the state immunization database for the child care providers. And we're really excited to highlight that we have a new mental health consultant. This collaboration ensures that we are addressing the social, emotional, and mental well-being of the community. It fits into a statewide prevention and wellness initiative to strengthen families. So you'll probably hear that term a lot over the next few years, strengthening families. These projects are in the spirit of service and partnership and promoting a safe, lived-in community. As the managers of Kids First, we recognize our responsibility to maximize the impact of the unique funding that we have available. We're supporting providers to meet the actual cost of childcare. And as the actual cost of childcare becomes a reality, the providers raise tuition, and so we raise the financial aid awards for families who qualify. We're also working in partnership with the Strategy and Innovation Office to modernize the application processes for grants, educator incentives, and financial aid. And we're conducting partner interviews. We recognize the importance of listening to those that we serve. And so in the spirit of continuous quality improvement, we interview our partners, listen to their feedback, and use that feedback to improve our services. We're always looking for innovative ways to capitalize on Kids First distinctive funding and focus on fiscal health and sustainability. We're honored to continue this work serving young children and families and child care providers in our community. And if we have questions around this, that's fine, or we can move on to the budget.
Questions at this time?
All right.
Couple. Special task district, you're looking at setting one up for childcare?
So we are not looking at setting it up, but the Confluence Early Childhood Education Coalition is a coalition that's set up, and they're looking at creating a special taxing district for Garfield, Western Eagle, and Picken County to support early childhood education.
Where are you in that process?
They're doing a lot of different meetings, getting partners together, trying to figure out would it be a sales tax or a property tax. I think they're leaning towards property tax, but it's really just in that planning process, trying to figure out when it could go to the voters.
And is CMC, is their curriculum still supporting ECE education? And that's moving into the pipeline? In the income assistance, that's ongoing. We're going to continue to do that.
The wage supplement? Yeah, it's a program that was designed for 5 years, and each year, our portion is decreasing, and we're working with the schools, and they're sharing with us their plans to increase so that at the end, those programs will continue to pay that to the individual teachers.
Okay, final question. Partner interviews, could you define who the partners are?
Sure, mostly the childcare directors,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you. Thank you for all you guys do.
Only question I had was around staffing. You had a couple of different initiatives there that you shared with us, and do you have a central location for understanding what staffing needs for our area of childcare providers is?
I would say there's not a central location, but all the directors share with us on a monthly basis, if they're fully staffed or how short-staffed they are. And then we do some advertising for them, but also the Rocky Mountain Early Childhood Council does advertising for them for staffing.
We're also seeing a little bit of data based from the wage supplement. We see teachers coming and going, and also from our hiring bonuses, because we've paid out 38 hiring bonuses since January. We know that 34 of those people are still working, so we're kind of keeping track of coming and going of the staff. So, I think that we're beginning to see from having meetings with the childcare directors, the results of the things that we've been doing to support new staff and helping them to.
Do you know what's a snapshot of current conditions as far as staffing goes?
I think, just this morning, we toured several of the schools and we talked a little bit about staffing. Right now, we have a school that's understaffed and looking for 3 or 4 teachers. They had a big turnover at the end of the summer, but we were told just this morning that they were interviewing 3 people today. We feel like, and I think it's because of the seasonal nature of Aspen, that some people are coming into town and we're beginning to have people available to interview and hire. I also know that Christina from Woody Creek Kids, who just is going to open new Tiny Pines, she told us today that she's had 4 or 5 interviews and she's really seeing it pick up. So hopefully, I think that has a lot to do with the seasonality, and we are beginning to see more people come to town.
And I know the school district that we visited, the Aspen School District, and spoke with Theron Mulberry, the assistant superintendent, and he said that their staff is really stabilized, and so that is looking good.
Thank you. John?
Yeah, I was asked recently whether Yellow Brick was at full capacity, and I answered that I was under the impression that it was. I'm hoping I was correct.
We're close.
Okay,
Yeah, we're close.
good to hear.
Yeah, Bill.
Thanks for all you guys do. My youngest is at the Yellow Brick, and my first experience with you guys, and it's been nothing but wonderful, so thank you. I'm curious, and this is a bit of a sort of qualitative question asked in a quantitative way, but what percentage of Kids First resources are going towards programs in the Yellow Brick versus outside of the Yellow Brick?
It's a good question. I wouldn't really divide it by in the Yellow Brick and out of the Yellow Brick, only because ELC is the largest provider, and they have 8 rooms in the Yellow Brick, and they continue to take the lion's share of our supports. The only supports that are happening in the Yellow Brick that other programs aren't privy to is the rent subsidy, and the wage supplement is within the city, and then the county is taking outside. So I don't think that the Yellow Brick receives more funds from us than other schools if you looked at it per classroom. If we narrowed it down to a school with.
More specifically, like if we look at Kids First as the whole pie, and we say the yellow brick is, whatever's happening inside the yellow brick for those specific schools is what percentage of the pie, and then how much is happening collectively to other programs elsewhere.
So that's not how we run the budget. So we need to run reports behind the scene to be able to produce that for you, because we'll look at vendor payments more than we will look at budgeting, because we budget by program area, not provider. And so I think the biggest differentiator, though, as was mentioned by our team, is the wage subsidy is limited to within the city of, all programs within the city of Aspen limits that are non-governmental. So those, all those programs have the opportunity to take advantage of that. And then the rent was only a recent change that was made by city council in the last 18 months to offer that rent relief. They're still charged it, but then it's waived, so it's got a clear cost of business being tracked with it. And then they're paying their operating costs, so their share of electric, water, so on. Is that okay if we get that back to you?
Yeah, I don't want to create a lot of work here. I'm just sort of curious, like, is the good that's being done by Kids First spreading outside the walls of the yellow brick, and if so, to what extent? That's
Absolutely.
really
How many
my question.
programs are outside of the yellow brick that we interact with now? How many are there?
I think 11.
11 outside of the yellow brick that receive our services with our tax subsidies.
Yeah, that's probably fine. I don't need any more effort on it. Thank you again.
Okay, that's all the questions? So thank you, Megan, for the Compass Goal presentation, and thank you, council, for your time today. This slide, this is our first slide, and it shows the Kids First 9 full-time FTEs. And it also shows the 2024 budget by expense in a pie chart, where you can see that 50% of our work is represented by program services, and program services can be defined as the work we do to support childcare programs. Next slide. From this slide, you can see that 92% of the Kids First revenues are funded by the City of Aspen dedicated sales tax.
Quick question on that. You have facilities rent 34,000. Is somebody not taking advantage of the rent waiver?
We rent some storage space in the basement of the yellow brick that creates revenues.
Is it also the utility reimbursements? We waive the rent, but not the utility reimbursement?
Correct. And from this chart represents, you can see that our operating budget strongly reflects Kids First mission with the emphasis again on childcare supports. 82% of our operating expenses are for funding and supporting childcare programs. You'll also notice that we're growing our fund balance to support future initiatives such as a new childcare facility at Burlingame. And that's our budget. We don't have any capital for next year or supplementals. Any questions?
Yeah, kind of. If you could go back one slide. On the expenditures, looking at my book as well. And in the book, it's under enrollment support. Quality improvement support. What is in that category, and why has it gone up significantly in the last 2 years?
So the quality improvement includes our mental health person. It includes we have a quality improvement grant. It includes all of our coaching in the programs. We have a full-time coach.
The intern.
And the intern probably falls under
new
quality
intern,
improvement
yeah.
as well. Our resource teacher falls under there as well.
So the sub, the intern, mental health, nurse.
So it's 4.5 FTEs. Okay. Thank you. other items, questions here for Kids First? Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks
Thank
for
you
your
for
time.
having us. Have a great night. Thank you. Thank you.
So Arts and Culture Fund is next, and I'll just do a combined 120 fund overview real quick before the Wheeler starts. So this is a view of the combined financials, just to remind council and anyone watching us on the internet today. The 120 fund was created following public approval of ballot measure 2A in the fall of 2021, and that allowed for expanded use of RET funds beyond solely the Wheeler Opera House. It now covers annual operating costs for the Red Brick Center for the Arts, and it also lifted the prior cap on grant funding. Any questions about the combined overview? All right, and then with that, we will move on to Wheeler.
Thanks, Matt. Good evening, Mayor and members of council. I'm Lisa Rigsby Peterson, the Executive Director of the Wheeler Opera House.
And my name is Alex Feely. I'm the business manager at the Wheeler.
So, welcome to the Wheeler. As the city department that is the department which may welcome you and your family and friends to a ski movie or a family performance, a concert, a community celebration, a psychedelic symposium, as the department which partners with an average of 25 nonprofits a year to host their productions and presentations, provides a low-cost ticketing service for local organizations, including the Aspen Institute and the Aspen Santa Fe Ballet and many more, and which provides and will provide for many of our community's children their very first live theatrical experience. We love representing the city to our residents and to our visitors alike. And I'll note that we're excited. We're off to a great start in our 23-24 season. So far in the performances that we and our partners have done, we're playing to 81% capacity of the house, and we're very happy about that. I'd like to highlight next 3 wins for you over the past 12 months to give you a sense of what we've been focusing on, and you can see them here. The first is a Wheeler vision development, and that helped us define the value, really, of a treasured city resource. Our vision statement is at the Wheeler Opera House, we set the stage for connections that create memories for our audiences, artists, and greater Aspen community. This statement, which was developed in conjunction with our Wheeler Advisory Board, now helps us guide all decision-making, whether it be programming choices, capital project recommendations, or the like. The second win was what we call Welcome All to the Wheeler. We've really begun focusing on expanding our audience reach. We want to welcome all to the Wheeler, not only the audiences we've typically attracted in years past. So while you may want to see a Warren Miller film, or you may want to see a jam band or a comedy night, there are others who've been asking us for more family programming, for instance, more diverse artists, and there are those that we've never really actively welcomed through our doors before, including much of our Spanish-speaking community. At this September's Selena tribute concert at the Wheeler, we welcomed an audience of over 300 patrons, 65% of which were new to the Wheeler for the very first time. And they told our staff and our ushers they'd never been in the Wheeler before, and they had lived in the Roaring Fork Valley for years. This was a great step for us, and it renewed our commitment to focus on this new goal, these efforts to really develop new kinds of audiences moving forward. The third Compass win that I'd like to highlight is our work in energy efficiency. Our core building assessment, we benchmarked our energy usage for our sustainability efforts moving forward. I'm happy to share with you that we were awarded a core grant for our LED lighting fixture replacement for our theatrical lighting system, and we assume that that's going to be a great energy savings moving forward. And the Building IQ benchmarking is going to be able to give us the data we need to track this year over year. In terms of ongoing Compass goals, I'll touch on just 2 of our outward-facing Compass goals. And as I mentioned, we are excited to continue Welcome All to the Wheeler. This includes city priorities of diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility efforts. And again, to reiterate, these are audience expansion and audience development efforts for us. We are, we've just conducted an accessibility audit of our historic 135-year-old building to be sure that we can welcome people of varying physical abilities into our theater. Some examples of this include reviewing where our handicap accessible seating is to see if we might provide better seating locations, and making sure that our hard of hearing patrons are aware of our wireless hearing loop system. We are also going to be looking into captioning technologies moving forward. Secondly, we continue to diversify the artists that we present at the Wheeler, highlighting exceptional talent, new genres, and making sure audiences can see themselves reflected on stage. Not only is this customer-focused service, which is a council goal, but as I mentioned earlier, it's great audience development. Finally, we're focusing on programming for students with a pilot program of student matinees at the Wheeler, as well as in-school outreach. Our first artist, is going to be Sean Booth, who you see pictured here. He's a hip-hop artist, and he has original songs and videos about heroes like Malala Yousafzai, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and Serena Williams. The second compass goal that I'd like to highlight is our hope to become a leader in sustainable theater practices. Through projects like the Building IQ program and consultation with the CoA representatives, we identify ways in which we can save energy, such as that LED lighting project I was telling you about, and participation in the Building IQ program. Additionally, we focus on our Wasteless at the Wheeler program. We encourage visitors to reduce, reuse, and recycle. This fall, we've installed brand new waste stations which encourage recycling and composting. We have them on every level of our theater, as well as backstage for our artists and in our admin offices in the basement. Additionally, we provide reusable water bottles to all of our artists. We keep thousands of single-use plastic bottles out of the local waste stream over a full Wheeler season. 2 of our capital projects in 2024 will contribute to this goal, both the already approved theatrical rigging project replacement, which replaces old chain motors with more efficient systems, as well as the sound system replacement, which I'll talk about in just a couple of slides, will collectively help us prioritize efficiency. As Kids First did, I'm happy to stop there before we get into numbers if there are any questions, or I'm happy to continue, whichever you'd prefer.
Hey, we can keep going.
Okay, so you can see our Wheeler structure. We have 16 FTEs. We actually have 15 full-time employees. That other FTE is comprised of, I would say, about 15 or 16 different people who are working hourly shifts. They might work a 3-hour house management shift. They might work 4 hours in the box office. They might do 2 nights at 8-hour shifts as stagehands. Our budget expense by type, you see our personnel, services, and contracts make up the bulk of our budget, and that includes fees to artists and that kind of thing. Moving on to our revenues, I know we have a couple of new council members, so I'll just take a minute to share highlights about our revenue stream so you can have a picture of that. We earn income through 4 channels. Ticket sales, which on the budget sheet here are called presented events. Those are our ticket sales. Ticket sales, rental events for which we collect rent from people who use the building and have labor chargebacks, box office fees, and our 2 tenant space rentals. I'll take a moment to note that by design, our box office revenue is not maximized. Policy direction from council and also from our Wheeler Advisory Board has consistently been to keep ticket prices affordable at the Wheeler. People don't want us to charge Palm Tree Festival prices, Belly Up prices, Labor Day jazz prices. They want to be able to bring their families and afford tickets at the Wheeler. We price affordably. We often offer children's tickets prices for family programs, and we also always offer a low option ticket price for each show. I'll also note that in our rentals event income stream, we have what I call uncollected revenues, and those uncollected revenues amount to about $63,000 annually. This is due to 2 factors. One, in the arts and culture grant, nonprofit organizations can apply for in-kind funding. If they get this in-kind funding and they rent the Wheeler, we take that amount that they were granted and essentially zero out their rental expenses. So we are not collecting that income as rental income. The second factor has to do with the 1984 agreement with the Aspen Music Festival and School, which includes in it, as part of their rental of the theater for 2.5 months in the summer, an inflation-adjusted credit, which goes against their expenses every year. As inflation grows, and it has, I'm not sure what the factor is since 1984, but the credit that they get continues to grow year over year. So you see that our earned income is just shy of $1 million. In terms of our expenses, you can see that they're broken down in these categories. I'll note that administration also includes all of our marketing and public outreach expenses, so it's not simply administration. Presented events is where you see all of the expenses related to the shows that we bring to the Wheeler. And I'll also note that our salaries are carried throughout each of these particular lines. We have expenses for rental events, box office, indirect production costs, which have to do with theater spaces and that sort of thing that aren't chargeable to any particular show. Our theater spaces, whether it's maintenance and building work, and also our rental spaces. Our operating budget is about $4.3 million. This year, capital request is $640,000. I'll note that we have approximately, $980,000 of overhead allocations and Wheeler transfers. This is an amount that covers city services that we share, including HR, IT, finance, all of those things which we don't have in-house. These are allocations and overhead expenses which go to the general fund. Are there any questions about the budget before I move on to our major capital project description?
I do have budget questions, but I think I want to hear your capital project stuff first and then come back to it, if that's okay.
Of course. Sure. We have just one major capital project that I have a in-depth description of, and that's our theater sound system replacement. This project, along with our recent lighting equipment acquisitions and our upcoming rigging project replacement, will ensure that the Wheeler delivers world-class entertainment experiences. While we're in an almost 135-year-old building, by the end of 2024, our theatrical systems will be state-of-the-art and able to support the wide variety of artists and programs that we welcome to our stage each year. There's a description here of what that actual project will be. We also have a number of other smaller capital projects. I'm happy to address any of them if any of them need further explanation.
Tenant space capital improvements, can you talk on that one, please?
Yeah, so we have two spaces, a gallery space and a restaurant space. If for any reason we needed to do any capital work in those spaces that were the responsibility of the Wheeler, not of the tenant themselves, we carry an allowance for that.
So we have no obligation per the leases, but it's a contingency.
Correct. If there's something material within the space itself that is not the responsibility of the tenant, then we have a responsibility to fix it, replace it, correct it.
But you have no specific capital project designed for that, it's just
Correct.
being held, okay.
Yes.
Thanks.
Yep.
Those projects that, they're budgeted, I think, in the budget book for 20, it's on. They're budgeted, I think, in the budget book for out year 2027. These are just placeholders in case they come up ahead of time?
Yes, the way that we are told to do our capital budgeting for some of these areas where we may not have a specific need, but there's a chance that we might, is to hold a placeholder. And if we need to put that money and roll it over into future years, we can. And then we do our best estimate in a particular year. This may be when there's a major replacement or there's a major project, and it may have to do with lease terms as well.
An example, council directed us to go out to RFP on the gallery space, and in those negotiations with the preferred tenant, there may be things we need to do as landlord. We're not in a place we would prefer to discuss this publicly because of negotiations, but these kinds of funds are necessary to help meet our obligations as a landlord.
if no one else has questions on this particular slide, I'll jump in on budget stuff.
Yeah, and I'll just add, we have no supplemental requests in this year.
Let's see the next slide.
It's a summary, recapping our 2 public-facing compass goals, no supplementals, and listing the capital.
Thank you.
Yep.
Bill, go right ahead.
Thanks. Thank you, ladies. A quick one on the sound system. When was the last time this work was done?
We believe the sound system is at least 20 years old.
Thanks. Matt, can you pull up the combined slide again? Because it shows the opening balances, which the other one does not. Thank you. I struggle so much with the fact that you have $31 million, maybe more than that at the end of this year. You will have $31 million next year sitting there. We gotta find some uses for that, from my opinion, real uses that materially change the experience at the Wheeler for this community. I know there's restrictions on what it can be used for, but I will not sit here and just look at $31 million sitting in an account not doing good for our community. So I personally have a big expectation that you come to us with some creative uses, new programs, new structures, new facilities, again, I don't know all the restrictions of what's on it, but I can't sit here and look at that again. That's, to me, that's just.
You'd want to direct those comments to us to say like, hey, council members, I would love some support to do this.
Okay, well, I do appreciate that, but I don't know, I also don't know what to suggest to use the money for. I don't know what the needs are, so that's where I look to Lisa on that. But yes, of course, I would like some support on that directive. You know, it seems to me just, we have this gift of this transfer tax that's been accruing, and we're not using it. So I would love to give them some direction to find really productive ways to use it.
I'll just chime in here. If you look at the Wheeler and the condition of that building is pristine.
I couldn't agree more.
Money's been spent on it, and it is limited up until the ballot question. It's limited to being spent within the walls of the Wheeler. So I like to draw that down, but I hate to just go out and spend money for the sake of spending money.
I wasn't suggesting that. That's why I said productive uses. And again, I don't know what they are. Maybe there's a great programming and, you know, an arts and culture programming that can happen within the Wheeler that money can be used for. I don't know. Maybe it can be used for a sculpture garden next to the Wheeler in that yard, you know, with world-class sculpture. I don't know. Those are just 2 very quick ideas that come to mind, but I would really like to see it benefit the community rather than sitting in a bank account.
That's why we've started in this direction, which is kind of recent, but we have started in that direction. You know, I could say this, my understanding is that $10 million of that is in reserve for Wheeler capital needs and maintenance. So it's not just sitting there. Some of it is planned out and programmed out. I'm wondering if there's not, you know, an opportunity for work session next year around Wheeler items. Because we're not going to, you know, this is budget process. We're not going to be able to expand upon what you're saying right here, right now to go forward. I understand you're kind of asking Lisa for some input and direction there. And if we were going to do that, then we'd want to take this to a work session next year. And there's support for that.
Yeah.
There's support for that. So we'll come back to it.
Great.
Okay.
Secondarily, less important, significantly less important to me than that, but still of concern is the fact that even including the approximately $200-something thousand of rent you're getting from the two tenant spaces, $226,000, you're only earning 20% of what you're spending.
Mm-hmm.
I understand the direction of past council, I understand the desire to keep ticket prices affordable. I still think that's too low.
These are the people you need to talk to.
I'm not looking at you. I'm looking at the screen. Maybe I've gotten cross-eyed today. I'm not suggesting that raising ticket prices is the solution to that. I think that by adding programming is really the solution to it. During this meeting, I looked at the calendar of upcoming events, and I gotta be honest, there's not much that appeals to me on there. I love the Wheeler. I love attending the Wheeler. There's not much that appeals to me on there. There looks like there's a lot of holes in that schedule too. So I don't know how long it takes to set up for any of these events and break down for these events. But I do know that major facilities around the world host back-to-back events day to day. So I would love to see more programming there, and I would love to see that number, that subsidy number come down, and the percentage of expenses that you're covering with your revenue increase over time.
If I may share some feedback, we
Please.
had a Wheeler Advisory Board meeting last week, and one of the major focuses of the meeting was the programming at the Wheeler. And one of the consensuses, if that's a word, that we reached with the board is that you're not going to want to see everything at the Wheeler.
Sure.
But we hope there's something you want to see at the Wheeler. According to our board chairman, once a year. We'd like everyone in the community to want to see something once a year at the Wheeler. So you may want to bring your family to SNAP because taking your family to the Wheeler is really exciting. Someone else may want to come to a sister city celebration that we're going to do in March. Someone else might want to come see a ski film. And so to effectively program, we can't program for simply one audience. And as a community organization, it's really, I think, our charge to have something for everyone, but not everything for someone. So that's just one thing I'd share. The other is that we announce our programming. So we will be announcing more shows next week. We'll be announcing more shows in the weeks to come. So what's showing on the calendar today is not what's happening between now and March. So we continue to add things as they become available. And as we've talked about, and I think as we've talked about at the board level, we continue to rebuild from the COVID closure of over 12 months, and there are some significant challenges in the performing arts industry, not simply for us, but for people like us all over the country. And we are excited about the opportunity to continue, as I say, our audience development efforts, to continue to add programming, think about what's the right mix for rentals. We are about to have 2.5 weeks of Aspen Community Theater in the building. They need to, we are taking the orchestra pit out tomorrow, then they move and load in all of their sets and everything on Thursday and Friday. Then they begin rehearsals for a week, and then they have 2 weeks of performances. So on the calendar, it looks like, okay, in a 3-week period, you only have 6 things going on. But there's actually something happening in the building all that entire time. So it's, I agree that there are opportunities for us to continue to grow our programming and add programming. I think that if you're simply looking at the calendar, it doesn't tell the full story of the work we're doing. And I welcome all input. I appreciated what our board had to share with us, and certainly the advice, the direction, and the suggestions of you and all the council members will make us better.
Great. My only retort, I appreciate everything that you said, and it's educational. My only retort would be, I think you're setting the bar too low. To only want to attract me once a year is not enough. I go to the Belly Up 20 times a year, and I don't want to see everything that they have to offer there.
Bill, we got to some of this, when we had board interviews of some of the issues, and I think there was certainly my desire to meet with the Wheeler board, and they'll do what we tell them to do because we set the policies. So there were some questions by some of the candidates about what is the proper programming? Are we offering enough? So I think that, your questions should be addressed with, I would love to see a work session with the Wheeler Board where we can openly discuss this. We heard some indications from at least one of the applicants that the city government was a barrier to delivering entertainment. So I don't know what that is. I want to find out.
Yeah, I agree.
But I really think that your concerns should rightfully be addressed with a work session. It is an advisory board, and it's up to us to give direction to the Wheeler.
Great. I'd love to do that as part of that work session in next year.
It's time for our triannual Wheeler meeting to redefine the direction that's been given before again.
It is a revolving door of the same outcome. Maybe it'll be different this time. Just for the benefit of the community who may be watching, as you'll see, there's something different on this slide than on any other fund. So typically, the slide ends at ending fund balance, and you see these two green lines below it. And that is the difference in revenues that were collected before the community voted for the expansion of the RET and after the vote for expansion of the RET to additional arts and culture uses. And it's really important because there's a promise made to those taxpayers before the date of that vote that that would be used for the Wheeler building and what happens inside those four walls. And so just for clarity for the community that might be watching about why there's a split on that ending fund balance between the two different kinds of uses. The only other thing I would say with this too is there's an intentional policy by council, which was with much deliberation with the Wheeler Board about keeping that 31 million locked up really tight, only for the Wheeler for a very, very long time. The council that sat here before this one made the decision to spend down that dedicated Wheeler balance, recognizing that the expanded uses would also still carry the Wheeler into the future. So there's definitely a faction of our community that does not necessarily want to see that 31 million spent down in the way we're doing it today, let alone an accelerated rate. So I just wanted to prepare the council to know that I expect we'll hear from those people who generally are pretty articulate about their position on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. If I can add to that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but while under maybe a different fund name, while maybe expanded uses are available for some of these funds, the intention is that this is still the classic Wheeler fund. As the Wheeler funds have been used for arts and culture before, but we have expanded that ability. So we're trying to walk that fine line. As Sarah said, there's a lot of people that would rather keep that 31 million in a lockbox and not touch it at all, except for some capital improvements and maintenance. There's other people that do want more programming, do want more expenditure, and do want more activity at the Wheeler, and that costs money. I want the public to know that what you see there, and you can kind of read how these numbers are mirror image, if you will. As one goes down, the other goes up. The Wheeler fund balance is healthy. This council does not have the intention of spending down funds to the jeopardy of the Wheeler Opera House ever. I don't know if there are policy statements that we should put in place that make that more of a policy directive, but I think that we will be having a work session, hopefully in Q1 of next year, to address different Wheeler issues, programming, subsidy levels, and the like. So we do visit this often. We are in a changed environment and changed conditions from where we were 5 years ago. It's a different ballgame out there, but nonetheless, the Wheeler is an amazing venue, and we will maximize it. We'll get back to that. Bill, a lot of your comments are echoing what we've heard over the last year. It's echoing also the conversations that I've had with Lisa, that I've had with Sarah, and we all agree that, you know, we want to work in the same direction. So Sarah heard that we want to have a work session to make sure that this is clear. Ward's request is that Wheeler board members are involved as well. I think there's support from other members of council for that work session.
Yeah, I wanted to verbalize my support for the work session, but especially expansion of the arts and culture grant funding. I know a lot of people are clamoring for that money. We got plenty of it, and some uses might be better than others, but I want to get to the bottom of what uses those are. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Yes, I'd say, as we always do, proceed with some caution, because yes, the asks will always be there. John, you support a Wheeler work session?
Yes, I do.
Thank you very much. So we will revisit some more issues around the Wheeler and stuff. I want to say to Lisa, it's a difficult position. You're not unused to that in your professional career. So we appreciate your understanding and your patience, because you know what the community expectations are. And so we appreciate your work. I also want to say thank you to you for your leadership over the last few years. You landed in Aspen at just the right time. And so, what you've led us through over the last couple of years and where we're going to be going is going to be fantastic. So thank you so much.
Appreciate that.
You're the recipient of a lot of commentary around the Wheeler. Like I said, you're not new to that, but nonetheless, it just needs to be stated that we do appreciate how you comport yourself and are so professional in your role. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
John, you have comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank Lisa for leadership at the Wheeler, especially during these trying times after COVID. I also want to say that I really look forward to the building IQ numbers that we get. I think that's going to be a powerful statement for other commercial buildings that will be addressed in the future. And I also want to point out that the Wheeler Opera House is probably in the best shape it's been in the 40-plus years I've lived here. And I think that's a testament to our city government, actually. So thanks for keeping the crown jewel of Aspen looking good.
It does.
I'll just put one more parting comment. Next time you go to Leadville, look at the Tabor Opera House, about the same vintage, and look at what Aspen's Wheeler Opera House is.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks.
See you after the holidays. And hopefully before.
Mike. Bad, Mike.
Members of the council, again, I'm Austin Weiss, your Parks and Rec Director, and this evening we're continuing our Parks and Rec and Arts budget presentations, and kicking us off first will be Sarah Roy from the Red Brick Center for the Arts.
Thank you, Austin. Thank you, Mayor and council members, for inviting us to present to you this evening. I'm going to start off by sharing with you our departmental mission, which reads, if you'll flip the slide, thank you. The Red Brick Center for the Arts is a place to grow community together through the exchange of ideas and shared experiences. So this statement was written with the help of our nonprofit tenants, our resident artists, our art educators, and our committee members, and is fulfilled through the collective actions of these individuals and organizations working, learning, sharing, and innovating together. The Red Brick serves this mission by working to cultivate a welcoming and collaborative environment within the Red Brick. And we also serve it through the arts programming and community events that we develop. We believe the arts are a powerful tool that can be used to serve your goal, council's goal, for wanting to create human connection, as well as support the strategic focus area of having a safe and lived-in community of choice. All right, I'm excited to share with you our Compass wins for this year. So the first is the Red Brick wrapped up a 6-month-long community engagement effort to develop a public art plan. It included a variety of ways for people to participate and a variety of ways that we were able to get out into the community. We wanted to make sure that the plan was directly informed by the community's vision. So whether you knew a lot about public art, a little bit about public art, you had questions, you were curious, we wanted to hear from you. A couple of the highlights include a street mural that we produced in partnership with the Aspen Ideas Festival. It was designed by local artist Chris Erickson and painted by over 100 volunteers. Additionally, we hosted open houses, focus groups, conducted one-on-one interviews, had pop-up booths at the Saturday market, the community picnic, and other local events, and we made presentations to local boards and organizations. We will be back in front of you guys in December for our work sessions to present those findings and a draft of the plan. Our next Compass win is a recognition and celebration of our youth programming and community events that we've developed in partnership with other organizations and other city departments. A couple of examples include a teen filmmaking camp that we produce with Aspen Film. This is the 3rd year running for this camp. It's super popular, and this year they made stop motion films, which were really cute. We also supported Aspen, Tibet by hosting a live sand mandala this July. So over about a 10-day period, when the monks were visiting, they came in every day to the red brick to slowly build this beautiful sand mandala. We also partnered with Aspen Center for Environmental Studies on some youth summer camps, and we supported the events department on the community picnic. These efforts, by working together, we do this because we know that we can amplify each other's mission and have that greater impact on our larger community. Our last Compass win is the curation of City Hall's 2nd art exhibition. So the project continues to be very successful and rewarding on a couple of points. The first is it creates opportunity for our local and regional artists to have their work on display in a very prominent governmental building. The next, it did something that I wasn't really expecting or had planned for, and that is I've come to realize it cultivates civic pride. So I've heard consistently from the artists that participated in the first exhibition and the artists that are in this current exhibition how much they feel it's a great honor to be included and how proud they are to have their work here at City Hall. The art also enhances the experience of the building for those that work here and for those that visit, and really allow for a deeper connection to take place. So consider Emily Chaplin's paintings that are just right out this door of local wildflowers, or Brian Colley's watercolor portraits of essential workers. These works represent what is unique to Aspen and enrich this experience at City Hall.
It's a really great exhibit right now.
Oh, good.
I want to reinforce for anybody that's out there listening, come by City Hall. The exhibit that is up now is phenomenal. There's some great pieces in it.
We had over 60 artists submit for that, for the show, and we selected 12. So it was great.
12 great ones.
Yeah. All right, so I'm going to share with you our goals. So the first is to steward an art center for now and to the future. So one of the most important roles of the Red Brick is taking care of that facility and assuring that it continues to improve and be optimized for its community uses. This work contributes to the city value of stewardship, and having an active center, again, supports that strategic focus area of having a safe and lived-in community of choice. These projects listed here are rather large in scope, therefore they're phased over a couple-of-year period. Budget approval for these projects happened during the 2023 budget cycle. I want to take this time to recognize our business service team, which is led by Scott Chisholm, who's actually in the audience, and the maintenance team, which is Brad Feit, Oscar Contreras, Tony Codd, and Obi Sovich. This team is integral to the work, integral to this work of taking care of this facility. The Red Brick is a beloved building, and we're working to assure that it continues to thrive well into the future. Later in this presentation, I will present on a supplemental request for a full-time administrative coordinator. This position is being requested to improve the administration for our facility management and our customer service experience.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
The picture that's shown here, is she doing a recreation of Tom Benton's wall poster number? Is that sheep photo?
No, she was a visiting artist from Bariloche as part of the Sister City Exchange program. So she was here, actually she's here again this fall, but her Sister City Exchange was last fall, and so she was in the Valley for about a month or so, and she came and did a live drawing over the course of like a week or two, and it was really cool. So people would stop by and speak to her about it, and then it was beautiful, and I said, we need to put this up for sale, and it sold in a
First
day.
night. Or not enough.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, that's Valeria. So.
Thank you.
Our next goal is to champion public art in Aspen. So as I shared earlier, we undertook a robust community engagement effort to develop Aspen's first ever formal public art plan. The arts and culture are core to Aspen's DNA and something so greatly valued here. And I want to thank Council for allowing us this opportunity to take the time, to spend the effort, to get out into the community, to gather the feedback, gather the ideas, and really work to craft that aspirational vision. This effort originated from community members and organizations asking for more art out in our public spaces. And we wanted to assure the plan and ultimately the program, again, represents the community's vision. Public art is unique in that it's out in your public spaces, therefore it's free and accessible for all to enjoy. Public art can also be used for diverse cultural expression, for placemaking, and for facilitating those powerful experiences for human connection. So consider our own dancing fountain, designed by Nick DeWolf and Travis Fulton, and how on a summer day, on really every summer day, the number of people gathered around that fountain, the kids running through it, the dogs running through it, people meeting people they've never, or talking to people they've never known before, gathering with friends. But all of those experiences create that really memorable moments. The fountain has also become very identifiable with Aspen and really transformed the corner where it sits. Again, we're currently in that assessment and synthesizing phase. And again, we're going to be back here for a work session in December with you all to present those findings with the goal of having a final plan for council's approval in Q1 of 2024.
Sarah, can I ask a quick one on this?
Yeah.
Firstly, this was awesome, the street painting, and I hope to see a lot more of that. I don't know if that was your brainchild or where it came from, but loved seeing that and can't wait to see more of it. Just put a smile on my face every time I rode by it. Are you going to have access to that Wheeler Arts and Culture Fund money to fund the Aspen Public Art Plan?
Do you want to take that?
That'll be council's call. You find the ballot language specifically included the Red Brick Center of Art for Arts and its operations and capital needs. And certainly this programmatic component can fit within that. However, I think we need to have a plan that's adopted by council before we could start putting together an implementation plan with cost estimates for you. Because right now you just don't have information from us yet to signal whether it's in the right direction. So we're not making a financial ask for implementation in 2024 until we get to you in December. And then we'll determine from there based upon capacity and priorities. For example, we need to do some real maintenance on some existing pieces in our collection before we perhaps expand it.
Bill, just to give a little context on this, for the ballot language, it was intentionally including the red brick that was funded through the general fund, and now that frees up some space in the general fund and allows for expenditures to the red brick. And so that was, I think, a really good part about the ballot language.
Thanks. Well, I'd certainly love to see some horsepower put behind the implementation of your public art plan, which, to be honest, I don't know what it contains yet, but based on what I saw with the street painting, I'd just love to see more vibrancy, more world-class art throughout Aspen, out in the public. So, I guess we'll talk about it in December, but I'd really love to put my support behind that.
I have to publicly announce I can't take credit for the idea. It was the Aspen Ideas Festival. They approached us with the idea, but we immediately jumped on board because it hit the marks of all of the reasons we were pursuing public art, the community engagement and things like that. And I will have to say the partnership model has come out of the engagement as something people want, and it's very viable here. So yeah.
John, that was pain in the morning that we went down to CML.
Right. No, I remember going by there on the way to meet you, and it was just starting out. It was such a festive atmosphere. And I still ride by here every day. It's a little worse for wear and tear, but it still looks good.
And the plan was always, with street murals, is that they don't last forever, and that, once the snow plows hit it, that it'll fade. So, yeah.
Maybe next year we can go to the other end of the mall. Or by Paradise Bakery.
Council, I think one piece that hasn't brought up about this particular engagement, it's definitely outside the scope of the budget, but it was also for safety. And how does this improve pedestrian and cyclist safety with these type of additions? And how do we balance that with the manual and uniform traffic control devices? And so we chose this corner because it was a little easier to experiment with. We felt like that Galena Street and Cooper Street had a little enough of experimentation for a while. And we weren't going to approach those businesses with this idea.
Thank you for that.
Our next goal is to cultivate a hub for community activity. So our programming is grounded in the city values of service, partnership, and innovation. We keep our programming relevant by researching and looking for new innovative ideas. And at the same time, we want to assure that we are being responsive to community needs. So we assess our programming through surveying, talking with our participants, talking with our stakeholders, and again, working closely with our partners. For our adults programming, we had heard from people that they would have loved to come take a class at the Red Brick, but the cost of our classes were kind of high for them, and that was a bit of a barrier. Plus, the classes that we are offering right now for adults is painting and watercoloring, and people felt a little intimidated by taking that class. Even though our classes are designed for beginners to experts, I completely understand by being intimidated. I'm intimidated by painting. So we're developing a new adult classes that are going to be in the $25 to $35 range, and the medium will be kind of changing with each class. So we're going to have hand building, clay hand building, or indigo dyeing, or paper making, or book binding, or watercolor journaling. The intention of these classes are to allow a time and space for people to get together affordably, again, have those interactions with people they know, people they don't know, and just kind of get creative. This is one example of some new programming we're developing with the aim of broadening our reach out into the community. And then that's it for my Compass highlights. I guess any other questions before we move on to the budget slides? Okay. So here you see our staffing. It's small and mighty. At the Red Brick, it consists of 2 full-time employees that work in the Red Brick office. So that is myself and Allison Viola, our arts programming coordinator. The additional 1.5 is the Red Brick's contribution to the business service team, who I shared about earlier, who supports our facility maintenance and operations. For our revenue, the majority of our revenue comes off of our building, so that would be our tenant rents, parking passes, and the revenue that we bring in off of renting the dance studio and conference room. The administration revenue is the revenue we bring off of our arts programming classes and our gallery sales. For our expenditure, the majority of our expense is towards labor. Those labor costs are represented both in the Red Brick administration line as well as the Red Brick facility maintenance line. The next expenses would include kind of services and supplies to support both, again, facility and programming. For our fees, we are proposing a 3 to 4% increase to our fees, both our arts programming fees and our facility fees. I do want to point out in our facility fees that in our tenants' leases, it states that rent will go up every year by consumer pricing index. For our arts programming, we are proposing a higher increase for our youth week-long summer camps. The reason is because we looked internal to the city and the recreation department charges $350 a week for what they call their youth specialty camps. That's chess and mountain boarding, or not, mountain biking. And we consider the arts kind of, again, a similar kind of specialty camp. And so this would allow us to kind of, again, bring it in line with what we're seeing across the organization. I do want to point out we have a scholarship programming that really assures that the cost is never a barrier for any child to participate. Any questions there, I guess, before we cruise on? Okay. We have one supplemental request. It is for a full-time position for an administrative coordinator. So the Red Brick is home to 20 tenants, a dance studio and conference room available for the public use, an art gallery, a variety of arts programming, community events, and one beautiful park. We can easily have 70 people showing up at the Red Brick to work or participate in activities. And on a really busy day, we'll have well over 100. And that's pretty much every day during the summer. This request is being made for 3 reasons. The first is the Red Brick Center for the Arts and the business service team have been sharing a full-time administrative position who splits their time between the Parks office and the Red Brick Arts office. So 2 to 3 days at Parks, 2 to 3 days at the Red Brick. This shared position is not meeting the needs at the Red Brick for our guest services and our facility administration, which impacts our tenants, our users, and our visitor experience. I want to point out that after hiring for this new position, if it is approved by council, the Red Brick will reduce the amount of budget allocation spent towards that shared model, and therefore the net impact of this new FTE will be minimized. The second reason is the Red Brick Center for the Arts is a highly active center with many diverse uses. This requires management of a range of items, from annual tenant leases, tenants' maintenance requests, vendor contracts, oversight of our custodial and security services, and working with the Parks Department, just to name a few. To give you an example of demand, our conference room and dance studio combined is booked for over 2,000 hours a year, and this position processes all those bookings. But we're more than just property management, as we work to cultivate that community of collaboration and a very welcoming spirit. One example is we host regular meetings with our resident artist tenants. We take pride in the work of building a culture at the Red Brick and believe it has a positive impact, again, on our larger community. As much of this work is currently being supplemented by our arts programming staff, with the creation of this new position, our arts programming staff will be able to focus more on the programming and events and our new initiatives. The third reason is the Red Brick Center for the Arts is an older facility with ongoing maintenance issues from small to big, some that we plan for and some that are total surprises. Our maintenance and capital projects require coordination and communication with our tenants, our programming, and our vendors and staffs. And a dedicated staff person would improve our work to offer that smart customer-focused government and contribute to being responsible stewards of one of the city's assets. Any questions?
Does that get funded out of the Wheeler-Rhett?
Our budget is in the 120 fund. So
Yes, it's 100% the Arts and Culture Fund.
And then for our last slide, you'll see here we have a couple of routine capital requests for kind of needed maintenance and upkeep. Any questions on those or anything else?
Questions at this time? Let's just talk about that last point that Ward just brought up for a quick second. So the Red Brick does not have its own fund. It is 120.552 out of the Arts and Culture Fund. If I looked at the numbers correctly, there's revenue from the Red Brick, and then there are expenditures of support for the Red Brick out of the Arts and Cultural Fund. What I saw was almost about income of $500,000, expenditures or uses of about $1 million. I know that's ballpark, Pete, but am I somewhere? I'm kind of close.
Yes, you're in the ballpark. About
Thank you.
700,000 to 800,000 on operating and about 500 on revenues. So there's a small delta on the operational side, and then really it's the capital component that the arts and culture expanded use monies really help support in this particular case.
I bring that up for a couple reasons. One, Bill, to your point about, hey, let's use some of these monies. That's where some of what we did. Yes, they will be available for the increased programming there. Anything that Sarah has been talking about here is coming from that fund since we opened it up. And I thank the voters again for support for that. I know that there are a lot of people that had their questions and concerns, but I think that we are moving in the right direction. Where that is most evident is, like you said, that mural that was on the ground. That's what's going to be coming more of from the programming that we're doing here. You know, you look at the programming that's increased, Sarah's take on trying to make accessibility to her programs even greater than ever. So we're definitely rowing in the right direction. I also wanted to bring that up just so that people understood what the impact to the Arts and Cultural Fund is actually, because that was one of the points that people were wondering about what is the red brick going to do? Is this going to really deplete the Wheeler Fund? And to be quite honest, I'm really happy with the balance. I think that the revenues that you're generating are a success. You really are, you know, from public arts and a art community center to be doing it as successfully as you are in the revenue department is really deserves commendation. So well done. And then on the other side of it, the fact that there might be a $300,000 annual kind of support from the Arts and Cultural Fund, well, that's why it's there. So I'm really happy with the way that this is working currently. The only other thing that I think I want to say at this time is, Sarah, we owe our thanks to you as well. How many years have you been the director at the Red Brick?
A little over 6 years.
A little over 6 years. What a different job it is now than when you took it.
Different environment.
A different environment, changed conditions without a doubt, but what you have taken on gracefully and acceptingly and pushed the programming over there, push the outreach, push the community interaction over there has just been fantastic. There's no wonder that you're asking for another full-time employee, as you have before, I believe, but you've earned it. You're doing a lot with what you've got, and you're doing a lot more than like I said, when you signed on. You've really grown with the program, and the program's grown under your leadership. So,
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I mean, it always, thank you. It takes a team, and again, it's not just me. I do have to recognize the support that I get, you know, from of course, my leaders, my managers, and then my collaborative partners, my other organizations within the department, or within the organization, excuse me. So, yeah.
thank you.
Thanks.
Other comments or questions at this time?
I just want to echo Tori's comments. Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
Support Aspen Public Art.
I know. I have more stickers too, if anybody
I'll
wants
need
them.
them.
And bags.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next up, we've got Matt Kuhn, our Parks and Open Space Director.
You guys all know Mike Tente?
Hello again.
I'm just here for support.
So, before I start, Mike kind of shadowed through the budget process with our team this entire year and was pretty involved despite a heavy workload. So kudos to Mike for volunteering to take that on.
And good job on the new park.
Which,
I always pronounce it wrong, so I'm hesitant to say it, but
The Delinsik Gardens.
it's really nice.
Thank you.
great. Well, my name's Matt Kuhn. I'm happy to be here representing the Parks and Open Space Department and sharing our 2024 budget proposal with you all. The Parks and Open Space team takes pride in providing public spaces and resources that connect our community and make Aspen the place that we know and love. I couldn't help but think that the recognition of the Wheeler being the crown jewel, Aspen Parks has got to be the crown with which the jewel sits. We've had a busy year, and looking back, we've had several successes that I'd like to share with you all from our Compass plan. We've got a lot to cover here tonight, so I'm going to try to move quickly, but feel free to stop me at any time. Looking back at the last year, you've probably heard this from Nancy when she presented the special events budget, but we partnered with special events on updating our parks rental and special event policy. This was really about ensuring alignment with the community, and providing clarity for those folks that use our public spaces for commercial uses or for their private rentals. We also were responding to changes of uses within the public space. It was a really great success. We've got a few lessons learned. I think we promised to come back to you all with some minor revisions if needed. I think we're going to do that in the next couple months as we keep that policy a living document. We also implemented in 2023 some changes to our staffing. This was a result of an effort that started in 2022, and we're calling this our Sustainable Staffing Plan, and now it's moving into plans. And this is really assessing and looking at everything that we do in our parks and trails and public spaces for maintenance and upkeep, and ensuring we have the right staff based on each individual task. We pivoted from using seasonal labor to some additional permanent labor last year. That has been a success for us in general as our department, and we're adapting to those changes. We also kind of standardized our operations and maintenance plans by creating the first operations maintenance manual for our parks teams, believe it or not. This has been a resource for us to ensure consistency within the community, and it ensures that our stewardship and service of the park spaces, of the downtown mall, are consistent. So, quickly going over our Compass highlights, we have 3 overarching goals for our department. These goals consistently align with the council goal for protecting our environment. The first goal I'd like to highlight is pursuing resilient landscapes that anticipate a changing environment and climate. We have several projects within here, but 2 that I'd like to highlight are our efforts towards water conservation design. The graphic that's on this slide illustrates work that some of Mike's team did in envisioning how the Heron Park landscape could be designed with resiliency for water usage as well as parks maintenance loads. And if you've been in Aspen a while, you know that the parks team has used electric golf carts around town for well over 20 years, probably close to 30 at this point. We're continuing, though, pushing the envelope on that and looking for more efficient trucks, as well as more efficient and electric options for skid steers, snow removal equipment, and mowers. The next goal I'd like to highlight is our preservation and maintenance of natural and park resources. This is a way for us to really just focus on being stewards of our spaces that we maintain and of the environment as a whole. Building on those successes of the Sustainable Staffing Plan that I mentioned in the look back, we've adapted and worked on that for the Trails program over the last 6 months with the help of Annie, who's back here, our financial analyst. She has thousands of rows of spreadsheets that went into this one simple graphic. But what this tells us is that what we need to do to take care of our trails system in the summer exceeds what we actually have budgeted currently. So spoiler alert, I'm going to talk about a supplemental for trails staffing in a little bit, but this is a graph that indicates that delta between what we need and what we actually have available. And then finally, our third goal is about promoting a forward-thinking department. I think we have been forward-thinking as a department for decades. Our trails system is evidence of that. That was a plan that was originally envisioned in the late 60s and 70s, believe it or not, and we've realized much of that. But we'd like to take that into the next 10 to 20 years through a project that will start next year about a strategic plan for our department. We're still scoping and working on that strategic plan. It's something that Mike is tackling as a result of the Certified Public Manager course that the city provided. It's his capstone project that we're dovetailing with. But the way we're thinking about that is it's a 100-year vision, perhaps, maybe a 25-year outlook for our department on things that we can and should do, and then giving us a 10 to 15-year implementation plan, and aligning and making sure that our existing long-range plan and capital plan aligns with what the community would like. So you'll see this in our capital proposal. It's really a big outreach effort for the community in our department. I'm going to pause and grab my water bottle. Are there any questions on Compass?
I've got a quick question, on the total labor hours per month. I'm guessing that there's
Your
more.
mic's not on.
I'm guessing there's more hours necessary during the winter months because of, cats grooming?
No, it's actually snow removal. So it's part of the reason we have our permanent labor within our department is snow removal is a really big burden on our labor. And so and you can think of all the miles of hard surface trails we have. That's why.
Okay, maybe, now I'm curious, does Nordic Council, who covers the cost of the cat drivers?
That is a separate program within our department. It's the Nordic program.
Okay,
And that's offset by revenue from Pitkin County Open Space and Trails. So that's 100% offsetting program within our fund.
thanks.
That's 50/50 Pitkin County and Aspen?
100% Pitkin County. Good question.
Thanks.
All right, so heading into budget and our structure, we have just the greatest team. I might be biased, but we have officially within the budget 45.5 FTEs. 40 of those are solely within Parks and Open Space. That's everything from our mowers and downtown services team to me and Mike and others here. The other 5.5 FTEs are portions of the business services group, who those positions are shared amongst various funds and cost centers. Our revenue, thanks to the passage of ballot 2B last fall, we're incredibly grateful to have that half-cent reauthorized and added to the 1 cent, which we're generally just calling the Parks Fund at this point. There's not two funds. As you can see, most of our revenue comes from that tax. The other two notable revenue sources for our department are within the tree program. Any tree that's removed for development purposes is subject to a mitigation fee. That generates about $400,000 average on every year. And then, as I mentioned earlier to John's question, the Nordic program is 100% offset. So every dollar that we spend from labor to fuel to supplies, we bill the county back for that dollar to dollar sum.
Sweet deal.
It's a great partnership. We're the operational arm and they're the funders.
Matt, two quick questions
Sure.
here, please. Could you talk for a moment about what the capital FTEs are for within the department and why there's so many?
Perfect. So a couple reasons for that. Mike's salary, he tends to focus on capital, as well as a couple other members of our staff are partially supporting capital projects. We've found that we're the most lean when it comes to actually service costs and the cost to do design work. When we go and outsource for an architect, we pay a lot more for those services. So we do have a small in-house design team, small and mighty. The other reason, though, is we have a capital construction team. And many of our staff within Parks Department are not 1.0 FTE capital people. They're split maybe 0.5 for trails maintenance and then 0.5 for capital. And so our construction teams are comprised of that 7 FTEs. We have a construction team. We also have a restoration team. And so those portions of those FTEs who are out there working on projects, construction-related projects, fall within the capital program.
Thanks. And then under the revenues on the tree program, do you ensure that every dollar that's collected as mitigation for removal of a tree is spent on a tree?
Generally, yeah, it doesn't go, it goes into the whole fund. It doesn't go into a specific program when we get revenue for a tree mitigation. But if you look at the expense of what the tree program costs per year, I can tell you what that would be. Yeah, it's not pulled out, but $481,000 is the tree program expense, and so it doesn't fully cover that. That covers the forester and the crews that we have in-house to manage the urban forest, as well as all the services to prune and trim and maintain the urban forest and plant trees.
Thanks.
Yep. Awesome. So now we're on to revenues. Sorry, we passed revenues. We're on to expenditures. Just trying to keep you on your toes. So about 3/4 of our budget goes towards the upkeep and maintenance of our public spaces and facilities and assets. Just about 1/4 of the budget falls into that administrative side. Just want to highlight that we do keep a very keen eye on our ending fund balance and the targeted reserves. Every year, we're adjusting our capital work plan to ensure that given certain council priorities or community priorities, that we can balance our fund and keep those targeted reserves. And so certain projects do move out and come back in as time allows. And then finally on permit fees and our fees, you'll recall in May when we solidified the updated park rental and special event plan and policy, we did update our fees to reflect those changes. We don't anticipate any changes to those at this point. And also over the last 9 months, John Spees from our Open Space and Natural Resource Program in partnership with Finance and others took a deep dive on our fees for parks specific, really with an eye towards simplifying those and aligning them with other fees that are assessed. And this is the outcome of those simplified and revised fees. Happy to answer any questions on those.
Yeah, I was curious, why is there a roofing permit that's under Parks and Open Space?
So Parks and Open Space tends to be a referral on most permits. If someone goes in for a roofing permit, it is referred to Parks for our review. Oftentimes, if there's a new roof going in, there's probably trees in the area that might need to be removed or to be pruned. So it just ensures that any changes to those permits that come up for building get reviewed by our staff to make sure that there's no impacts to the urban forest.
How different are the per square foot permit and review fees versus what's in place today?
It's a little different. So the landscape and grading permit was previously a flat fee, $74. Now it'll be at 28 cents per square foot, which aligns with other fee structures. I don't have an analysis of how close that is, but it's generally, it's not a gross augmentation of fees. It's just a different way of quantifying that.
Well, I'm not sure that's true. Let's use the number 3,000 square feet of yard area that you'd need a landscape permit for. That's how you're calculating it, or is it on the total site area? What's the basis for the total square footage?
It would be of what is being requested for the permit, I believe.
So again, is that outside the footprint of the building, or is it the total site area?
Outside.
It is the area disturbed would be included in that. So
building
depending
footprint
upon what is submitted as area disturbed, that would be considered in the calculation of the fee. So whether it's being disturbed for, during construction as a temporary disturbance, or if it's a major change to the area that is permanent, both of them would follow underneath this 28 cents a square foot.
Okay, so let's take a 6,000 square foot West End lot, which is the most common size of a lot in the West End. We're going from $74 to $2,000.
Yep, and part of this was focused on some cost recovery for the time that our forester and plans reviewers spend on these. $74 for a 6,000 square foot development, our team could be spending easily probably 2 to 8 hours just in review for that, if not more. Some of these complex projects grossly exceed 20, 30 hours of staff time in review, site visits. So the numbers were based, with a lot of focus to ensuring that these are not exceeding our cost recovery and our costs. And we vetted those with Pete a while back, and I think we even scaled them back from our original 100% cost recovery model.
And so all of these changes to permit fees coming through is to show you the actual cost of business. These are not profit centers. This is the actual cost to deliver the service to comply with the code.
And just to make sure, I think I know this, Matt, but your purview on these types of permits is limited to trees, right? There's nothing else that you're looking at on a,
Generally trees, if there's an adjacent trail, if there's an existing easement on the property, that would be a trail or public access. If there's riparian impacts, let me think what other elements. might be
riparian
something-
impacts, meaning like a ditch?
If there's a ditch, utilities and parks kind of partner on ditch reviews and how those get dealt with. There is a little overlap there.
Okay, and the 28 cents and the 28 cents are cumulative, right? So you'd pay the review at submittal and you'd pay the permit fee at issuance. So 56 cents a square foot total, right?
I don't know that answer. I believe it is cumulative. It would
Yes,
depend
because there's, the resource review and the grading review are two different things. And so if your permit requires both of those services, you'll pay for both of those services.
So what's the delineation on this? The second one, landscape and resource review, what's the difference between that and a landscape and grading permit?
The riparian corridor is a great example of that. We have to review disturbance within that resource area. We're gonna look at that differently than if it's where it has no grading involved with it. So the disturbance might be that they want to put a private amenity within that space that needs to come under review of the code.
Thanks.
Great. So, our first supplemental request is to move the wildlife coordination from the police department where it currently exists to the Parks Department. Currently, the functions of the interdepartmental coordination for the wildlife program fall primarily within the PD, and there's other responsibilities shared between Parks and Open Space as well as environmental health currently. This kind of split shared method stems from evolution of the BEAR program over time, and throughout the years, the complexity of managing the wildlife within the Aspen community has grown, and it's a significant staff resource time commitment from the police department to currently manage the program. Given increasing complexity as well as other factors such as the new populations of moose in the community, as well as the possibility of wolf reintroduction into the area, we're proposing to shift the coordination functions out of the police department and into the Parks and Open Space Department. This is really a position that we need to ensure that there's a couple things that happen. Number one, we need to make sure that the community education is occurring, especially as we're contemplating how best to roll out a composting program within town and ensuring that an added receptacle is maintained in compliance with our wildlife. It's also about compliance within the core and working with the business community to ensure that really actually kind of complex agreements and negotiations amongst the various tenants within the alleyways are maintained so that we're living in harmony with wildlife. This position is also anticipated to work closely with Colorado Parks and Wildlife as well as Pitkin County and ensure that our partnerships with those organizations are functioning at their highest levels.
Matt, on this one, will you be writing tickets on people who don't secure their trash, or will you then have to call the police to come write the ticket?
This position will be empowered. Currently, our Parks and Open Space Rangers are empowered and write those tickets, as well as community resource officers and regular patrol officers. So it's a multi-pronged front, and this position absolutely would be writing those tickets.
And is the revenue from those tickets a meaningful sum per year?
It depends on what the bear season's been like. It fluctuates significantly. Back in 2018, the city council at that time substantially changed the fee for violations of our wildlife ordinance, and that those fees are meant to be pretty punitive in the way that they were restructured. So I don't see it as a significant revenue source that offsets this position at all. Those funds just come into the general fund as fines collected.
Thanks.
Our second full-time position request, second of two, is a position that goes hand in hand with the wildlife coordinator. This position we're proposing is a natural resource manager. And over the last 5 years, there have been an incremental increase in the work that we're tasked with around wildfire-related work, wildlife, as well as our commitment to crafting more open space management plans and the growing complexity associated with managing the urban forest and adjacent forested lands with things such as Doug fir beetle, which we're seeing on Shadow Mountain currently, and changes to our urban forest and how we're dealing with that as it pertains to wildfire mitigation. The current open space and natural resource manager has 6 direct reports, each with their own distinct program of work. This structure really exceeds best practices, and especially when you are considering the diversity of each of these programs. In order to further expand our commitment to these initiatives, we're proposing a restructuring that will create an improved structure and provide increased bandwidth for us to commit to natural resource management, but also to commit to these partnerships that we're already part of. I think you're aware that we're members of the Roaring Fork Wildfire Collaborative. There is a budding Roaring Fork outdoor coalition that's forming around management of our public lands. And really, by adding this natural resource management, we're adding bandwidth that really focuses and allows us to provide the resources for wildfire projects, both in cooperation with other organizations, as well as doing mitigation work on our own properties. We have done some fuel mitigation projects, and those are rather burdensome in staff time, and this position would also assist with those.
Physically performing them or coordinating those?
Generally coordinating. Depending upon the candidate, they might be able to go out with a saw and work on certain projects. Our projects for fuel mitigation tend to use machines to deal on a more landscape scale. Great. I alluded to this. This is a simple request for an additional Trails seasonal employee. It would add $28,000 to the Trails program funds. This would allow us to meet our minimum trail maintenance standards that we analyzed and determined over the last year. And really, it reduces our potential for deferred maintenance. Our team is small and mighty. There's 2 Trails folks out there every day taking care of our trails in the summer. But things like noxious weeds, deferred maintenance on our bridges, as well as things like litter control are things that tend to fall off when we just focus on the prime duties. This added seasonal position would help us ensure we don't defer too many things. And our last supplemental revolves around a shift to how we do our tree inventory. Traditionally, our tree inventory is something we do every 5 to 7 years. It's a holistic survey of the trees in our urban forest, which there's about 13,000 mapped on this graphic you can see here. But what we'd like to do is shift that to an annual survey of a specific zone within the forest. That would allow us to adaptively manage each of that zone the next year. And so by taking the data in one year, we would inform what we need to do for management actions in that specific unit the following year. This supplants the capital project that traditionally has been out every 5 to 7 years and adds the funding to our program, tree program for implementation. So I have 3 facilities-related capital projects that I'm representing Scott Chisholm and the facilities maintenance team on. If you recall, in late spring, I think it was associated with the fall spring supplemental packet, we touched base with council about bringing recreation facilities projects into the Parks Fund. And we have done that in this budget. There's 3 really important but not terribly sexy capital projects that we need to tackle in the forthcoming year. The first is the replacement of the Aspen Ice Gardens cooling tower. This piece of infrastructure ensures that the ice is kept cold so that we can play hockey and have skating there. And it is a modernization of a facility that's almost 25 years old. The next capital project.
Matt, quick one on that one.
Yep.
Would this help us get closer to keeping the AIG open all year round?
So I don't really want to speak to that because that's a programmatic decision.
I'll speak to it. You have issues with the building structure itself and its insulation to be able to do that effectively. It'll get pretty warm in there, and this is part of the recreation facilities conversation that was started 2 years ago, was to look at that, and at this point, we've been told to maintain status quo.
Okay, so let me ask the question a different way. If a decision was made to upgrade the insulation to facilitate keeping it open year-round, would the equipment that you're purchasing for the cooling tower be sufficient, or is there some small upgrade that would allow it?
I can presume that this is a necessary upgrade for the whole functionality of it as a cooling system. I think that.
I don't think our scope when we bid this addresses that question. So I don't think we can actually answer it because
Yeah, I'd love to
the
ask
direction
them, yeah.
we had was to work within the existing footprint with the existing structure. And so our RFP is designed for that.
I'd love to know the answer personally, that if the decision was made to insulate it and keep it up there, you know, is this the appropriate equipment? Because I don't want to, and I don't know where anyone else stands on this, but I know there is demand for year-round hockey and more ice time. And if we go that path, I want to make sure that if we're spending this money, you know, it wasn't an incremental $30,000 to turn it up to the necessary levels, if you will, without knowing the technical terms.
The next kind of critical asset maintenance project is related to the electrical panels and wiring at the recreation center. This is an essential replacement for the main distribution system for the rec. It's nearing its end of life. This is a multi-year project, so you're going to see this both next year as well as in out years. Next year's money is focused on kind of the engineering and design, and then the actual work is in out years. The final recreation facilities project is for the addition of some conference room space within the Lewis Ice Arena. So if you imagine this image here showing the Aspen Junior Hockey offices, it will mirror that on the opposite side of the Lewis. This takes advantage of the existing structure overhead and provides 4 new staff offices as well as a conference room space. It's a pretty smart and efficient approach to addressing staffing space requirements. On the smaller side of the projects, I think the most exciting one here is new sliding doors at the Arc. Those, as you can imagine, go open and closed many times a day. Are there any questions on these? And then on the capital maintenance side, these are all funds for various maintenance items that need to happen on all of the recreation facilities. So there's specific lines for each facility here. All right, so now we get to move to the fun stuff here. No offense, rec. This is the parks-related capital. First project here is the pedestrian mall safety implementation. It was touched on a little bit with some of the painting conversations that Sarah elaborated and worked with at the Wheeler node. This is about an implementation of pedestrian safety improvements, permanent pedestrian safety improvements, specifically at the Wheeler node. This has been ongoing for the last year. We've looked at, we've dusted off the pedestrian mall planning document that occurred with the community about 5 years ago. And we focused in on the Wheeler node here and what can be done both to improve vehicle movement through here, but also protect all the kids that are using the mall fountain. This is a multi-year project. Next year's funding is for us to continue design and planning work around what will happen here. And implementation, we have a placeholder in here. We've got a lot of work to do before we can, say for certain that that funding is appropriate. We will update that likely heading into the 26 budget cycle on this timeline.
Is that depiction, is that picture a representative of the work that is scoped and scheduled here?
This depiction is a snippet from the schematic design plan. The schematic design encompassed the entire mall. That's something we're talking about interdepartmentally and likely going to be bringing as a work session to City Council some topics for discussion within the next 3 to 4 months. There's a lot of related decisions here. But yes, in general, this depiction is what is being contemplated because that is what was envisioned during the SD.
To be more direct, to answer your question is that what we foresee based upon building permit activity, that there is a need for utility replacement heading south from this intersection. And so that combined with the dancing fountain issues, the concern of more and more kids getting too close to that intersection, is what's led us to start our work in this area. That way that disturbance can be minimized to hopefully only one season when construction activity has to occur. There's a lot more work to go in on this. However, we need to get started. There's infrastructure issues underneath, and Parks gets to do the pretty stuff on top, but there's a ton that needs to happen underground under these pedestrian malls.
Matt, a couple questions. Is the traffic flow intended to stay one way there?
At this point, yes.
Okay. I don't know what these things are called, but those portable car stopper devices that you had out for some of the summer, what was the experience with those? Why are they no longer out?
So the meridian barriers are brought in during our highest pedestrian volumes around Food and Wine and 4th of July. These improvements would provide permanent solutions towards that probably are more aesthetic and fall within our desires for what the downtown mall should look like.
And I know this is a little off topic, but just curious why we're not keeping those out. Like, why is it only something valuable to do when it's the busiest pedestrian times?
Because they look like.
I'll defer it back to council.
Sorry.
There's a lot of comments about the unattractiveness of them, and so staff felt like we really needed to advocate for at least when we have the most likelihood of pedestrian and bicycle and vehicle interactions. But we really want a more permanent solution on multiple locations around the Ped Mall where we think there could be accidental or intentional vehicles entering pedestrian zones.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you. We continue to partner with Pickens County Open Space and Trails on studying and looking at the feasibility of improved trail connections between the Aspen Airport Business Center and Brush Creek Park and Ride. While we recognize and kind of reference this as between 2 points, it's really about broader community connection. Over the last year, we've moved from this early kind of design and feasibility to a more focused kind of community engagement effort. What we've found is just about 70% of our survey respondents, which we had 500 over the course of the summer, support improved connectivity in this area. For us in Aspen, there's a couple important considerations, I think, of why we continue to be 50-50 partners with Pitkin County on this. One is it ultimately provides improved connectivity to Cozy Point Ranch. Two, it provides quite a lot of connection alternatives to the broader trail system, especially when we're considering Burlingame and potentially the lumberyard and other expanded uses of or expanded residences within the Airport Business Center. Not only does this connect down valley, it connects back up valley and provides an alternative access method for kind of first last mile connectivity into town. What we're looking at doing next year with this project is continuing further design and engineering and ensuring that these are feasible and moving forward. I do want to point out that Pitkin County is leading this project, and we will be going in partnership with Pitkin County, in front of the BOCC later this fall to really get a go, no-go on taking this to the next phase. So there is a chance that this project gets canceled, although we do think because of the community support, there's a good chance this moves forward.
Matt, that's lifetime budget of 4.25 million. Is that just Aspen? Is that?
That would be potentially our contribution. We don't know what the bridge costs are going to be. We don't know what our funding schemes are going to be. That's what we're looking to start digging into next year. We would certainly go after large grants. We would go after a variety of split expenses, whether it's through different communities or different local jurisdictions, as well as potentially federal grants as well.
Yeah, what I saw for total cost of this connection is pretty darn high.
Correct.
What was the total cost that Pitkin County came up with?
The existing estimates are north of 20 million. There's a lot of variability. I don't want to hang our hat on a specific number, but if you do 2 bridges, you're likely going to exceed 20 million for sure. So yeah, this would be our potential contribution. And again, that's all subject to future discussion as well. There's placeholders in our out years within this project.
This is ultimately a Pitkin County decision?
I think it would be. The land, the jurisdiction is Pitkin County. I think we're active partners, but none of these, Austin, correct me if I'm wrong, none of these would land on City of Aspen property.
Is that on? Yeah, no, you're correct about that, Matt. It's all on county property, with the exception of the intercept lot, CDOT property that's managed by the City of Aspen. And so looking at this, this was the initiated with looking at alternative transportation modes from the intercept lot into town.
So one of the plans was just, this is the intercept lot getting over to the Rio Grande Trail. Then to connect with the AABC or the Business Center Trail, you were thinking of either they're thinking of bringing the Rio Grande all the way down or crossing the river again at the ABC.
So the plan in its full build would incorporate 2 bridges. What we've learned in the outreach is the ABC really is an island, and they would like to have the bridge ideally situated as close to possible to the ABC. Originally, we were thinking of it a little farther to the south because of land ownership. Sorry, a little bit farther to the north because of land ownership just past the Sardi house. However, we have an alternative approach that we've determined could be feasible to bring this much closer to the ABC. The residents of the ABC were active participants in this outreach and brought a lot of good points out. And that broader community connection and access to the Rio Grande from an up valley perspective is really actually an important consideration that they highlighted for us. And while this is kind of why I said we originally viewed this as a ABC to Brush Creek last mile connection. As we've worked through this process, it's really become evident that it is that, but it's also about connecting the communities better. Residents in Snowmass came out in support of this. WeCycle said if we have these two bridges as opportunities, it connects Aspen to Snowmass with WeCycle via the Brush Creek, and they would be very interested in partnering. So as this outreach unfolded, it really told a broader story than we originally even were planning on.
Man, as I recall, there was one option was to cantilever along 82, and that was going to be even more disruptive and expensive.
Correct.
Yeah, I just want to say between climate change and our coming projects, entrance to Aspen being talked about, the airport expansion down the road, I think this trail is going to be vital. I fully support this. Yeah, we need to get more people out of their single occupancy cars and into bicycles, and that was actually part of the conversation too, was there were a lot of people from Snowmass Village and Brush Creek Village that said that this was the missing link for them to get on their bikes and ride into town.
Thanks.
So was that could you maybe help me understand that, especially what John just mentioned, a little bit better? Like, were there common themes in the public feedback on like what the most common use cases would be for this trail? Is it people who live in Snowmass Village? Are they going to drive to the intercept lot and then get on a bike from there? Help illustrate it for me a little bit.
The sky's the limit. There's not a common thread theme. Every user would use these in different ways. What we heard is residents in the Airport Business Center would utilize this to go both up valley and down valley to destinations for recreation as well as transportation. When you talk to folks from Brush Creek, they talk about utilizing that to connect into Roxy's to go do a grocery run instead of using their car. When you talk to residents on W/J in that housing development there, they talk about being able to access RAFTA because the seasonal Woody Creek bus doesn't run year-round. And so the use cases are very diverse, and I don't think there's a common thread. It depends on every individual person, whether they're recreation-focused or transportation-focused. That's what's kind of cool about this, is it is used in a lot of different ways.
And bridges must be a component of this, right? Like, that's really the challenge, is getting across the river.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, the way it exists right now, you have to bike all the way down to the Woody Creek and then back up. It's too much for some people. Another option is somebody taking a bus from down valley, getting off at the park and ride, getting on a WeCycle, riding up to Snowmass Village or into Aspen. Matt's right. There's so many different permutations of how this could work.
And I was initially skeptical of this being kind of a last mile thing because it's actually last 5 miles. The trends we're seeing with e-bikes being used from the ABC to Aspen are significant. If we were to contemplate this as a first last mile solution or first last 5 mile solution, simple things like covered bike storage and locked covered bike storage at the Brush Creek Park and Ride could actually make this a viable solution for people to get on an e-bike and get to downtown Aspen faster than a bus.
Exactly.
And
Half the year.
But what we did here, originally this was envisioned as a permanent plowed surface. There's a lot of desire from Burlingame and ABC residents to have better Nordic access. And that was another takeaway from our outreach this summer, is to have this be a connection to the broader Nordic Trail system.
One other thing I'd like to point out is back when 82 was widened through the Shale Bluffs, bike bike trail component was an option that was presented at that time, and it was an extra 5 million, I believe, at the time. And now, don't we wish we'd spent that $5 million on that trail? I'd hate to be 5 to 10 years from now in the same position, looking back at this and thinking, wow, I wish we'd spent that money then.
Did you say that this is not budgeted and that we would need to find a funding source?
City funding,
City-side.
we have 4 million allocated in our long-range plan at this point.
So to just add on to that, council, you're going to probably see the project come through the EOTC. As a funding partner, you also have the opportunity to look, particularly because of that connectivity to the bus transit system, to look at your transportation fund.
Let's keep going. We'll come back with more questions. We could get stuck on this. There's a lot in this department, in this budget, and in this presentation.
He did warn us.
Let's keep going. Yeah, well, I think this stuff deserves much more of our time, to be quite honest. There's a lot of dollars. There's a lot of areas of impact. So I think we need a work session next year to really get clear on some of this.
But for next
Specifically
year,
on-
it's 250K.
Next year, we're requesting 250K if BOCC says go to continue the design and engineering, and absolutely we'll stay apprised. There's going to be multiple decisions along this. We need to know what the project would cost before we talk about funding and timing and how this feathers into the broader Parks Fund. So yeah, the request is 250 for next year, and if we need more time for that specific topic to be, continue partnership on furthering the process, happy to do that.
I appreciate it. This is, I've seen this proposal in different places, EOTC being one of them. It still doesn't make a ton of sense seeing the other options that were available and this, and there's just not real agreement or consensus in the room, any room I've been in about this project. But this is just one. I don't want to focus on this one. I'm always concerned about things that just gain their own momentum so we're going to throw in 250. So then the county says, hey, well, we have 250 available from the city, so let's go ahead and keep going with design. Meanwhile, everybody's going like, I don't know. How are we going to pay? I don't know, but we keep going. And then they come back and they go, hey, the design's done, so now we can keep going. And I just concerned about it. But like I said, this is not singular to this project. I have a lot of comments, actually, but let's get through this and come back to whatever we need to come back to.
This next slide summarizes a variety of things happening at Cozy Point Ranch. Building on the site visit with council in the fall or August of 2022, we continue to prioritize the replacement of the existing ranch worker housing as our highest priority at Cozy Point Ranch. In order to tackle that, we're also addressing our potable water system at Cozy Point, as well as our wastewater treatment. There's two other portions of projects that are not being funded. One other not being funded in 2024, which is the riding arena. We have identified that the riding arena does not meet current snow load requirements for building code here. And the boarding facility is nearing its end of life and is showing its age. Those two projects are in the planning phase at Cozy Point Ranch. In other related projects at Cozy Point, we have the Farm Collaborative. You might have seen a lot of activity if you've driven by the Cozy Point Ranch in the last couple weeks. Farm Collaborative broke ground on their project. It was in the paper, and they are installing their septic system currently. In 2023, we have a little bit of funding in the Parks Fund to look at feasibility of a wildlife crossing. This would not be us solely doing that. It would be us in partnership with CDOT and Pitkin County and a variety of other stakeholders. We have partnered with the Roaring Fork Safe Passages to partially fund a bit of their current feasibility study, and we're going to see where that goes. Their feasibility study should be published in the next couple weeks. And then we do continue to manage and maintain the variety of tractors and tractor implements that we have at the ranch. I'm happy to pause on Cozy Point Ranch. I suspect there might be a question or two.
How many Aspen citizens use the arena and actually actively use Cozy Point Ranch?
I don't have the number of citizens who visit the broader ranch at my fingertips. However, I can say that last time I asked regarding the equestrian operations, over 50% of her boarders were Aspen residents. I can say that the farm.
How many borders are there?
I think there's 80.
Okay, so 40.
40 boarders to the equestrian operation. The Farm Collaborative reaches thousands of Valley residents a year, whether it's through educational programs, whether it's through hosting events, or providing food to things such as the Thanksgiving dinner that the Farm Collaborative provides.
Yeah, the reason I'm just asking that is that Cozy Point capital projects are a lot, and I mean, Cozy Point is a valuable asset coming into town to keep that undeveloped. But weigh that against the number of people that are benefiting from it in our community seems to be a lot per person.
Moving on to Maroon Creek Road Trail. This is a very big project. We would like to discuss this in great detail with you all on October 30th. We've got a presentation prepared and are proposing that to be an action item that goes into great detail. The entire project's finances, not just what you see right here. And so unless there's any burning questions on the Maroon Creek Multi-Use Trail, I'd propose that we punt that to October 30th.
This is the one that we've been seeing consent calendar items on recently, right?
And as an action item, that will be also considering the full contract for construction. We're continuing to move our office remodel project forward. This is about improving the interior space of the park's buildings and ensuring that our staff have an adequate workspace to work in. We have grown significantly over the last 25 to 30 years, and we've adapted with various minor remodels and stacking multiple staff into existing office spaces. This looks at just kind of re-envisioning, making sure that it's functional for our entire team. We're under contract currently for architecture and design, and our hope is to potentially break ground in the fall of 2024. This would be roughly a 9 or 10 month project for us to remodel and then get back into the space.
And it's billed as a remodel, but is this increasing the amount of space, office space? I think in the Lewis Arena, you had some additional space there. Is that for Parks and Open Space employees?
That's for recreation.
Okay.
So this is for Parks and Open Space. We are working through the land use process. There is likely a slight net increase in the definition of office space. How we're functioning now, it's not, but it will be in front of you with a land use application likely in the next 3 to 4 months.
Yeah, I value you and your staff. It just seems like a lot of money for an office remodel.
I'm just going to jump in here. Why don't we set up a tour? I'd encourage you to see this space. This is not space indicative of the workplace that we recruit to. There are people on top of each other. The only conference room in the admin sits in the middle of Austin's office. It is not a well-functioning space for what we're asking these teams to do, from my view. Now, I asked them to punt this back more than 1 year as they were working on some other capital and getting through the tax renewal. But I would encourage you, if you have any concerns about this project, that we get you out there so you see the space and the working conditions.
Sir, that was why I asked if we're increasing the space, because it is pretty crammed in there right now.
There's so this image shows some office space in the Lower Parks facility, which is the oldest part of our campus. And so moving folks out of this space, which is immediately adjacent to a garage, and into a true office is part of it. We're taking a really conservative approach to this. It's an adaptive reuse. We're not adding or changing any major walls or exterior walls. And the cost for construction in this environment, is reflected in what it costs to do an interior remodel of this scale.
I would very much enjoy you giving me a tour.
Come on out. Happy to show you around.
Yeah, furthering that, Matt, can you talk to us about the importance of the location of your offices on that site versus somewhere else?
It's a great location for us. It's central to the community campus where we maintain Island and Rotary and all the ball fields, more ball fields. We maintain the Nordic system out of this facility, which is immediately adjacent to the golf course. It allows us, it's pretty central to our trail system, our hard surface multi-use trail system. It's central-ish to our parks, recognizing we take care of Promontory and Harmony Parks out at Burlingame, as well as Wade Robinson, if you know where that is, up by the water campus. So it's pretty central. It's it's the space we have. It's functional for us. We have bays, we have trash compactors, we have adequate storage for all of our vehicles, things like that. We can't move our office staff to another location and be separated from our field staff. This project really is about bringing our teams closer together.
And there's also efficiency with the golf course operations. All the golf course operations, from mechanic to equipment, runs out of the same campus as well.
So the reason I ask is, as we've talked about at this table before, there's a large space available across the street for sale for $4 million. And to spend $3.5 million on something that's still going to be an old office building when it comes down to it raises a lot of questions for me. But if it's critical for you not to separate the office people and the field people, I don't know what we would do with this if we did move the office people elsewhere.
Could you send me that listing? We'll take a look at the acreage of it and the price point per acre. That sounds really low for that area.
No, this was your old building department across the street. Here. Behind us.
Oh, yeah, no, what he's asking is the old mill building. Yeah, I don't believe that is meeting the intention, both from a work culture standpoint as well as, quite frankly, how field staff supervision happens to separate those crews. They're pretty well intermingled. The only component I would contemplate is maybe 2 or 3 jobs, which is really a defeating purpose for what the cost would be to purchase in North Mill.
Is there any housing at this campus?
Yes, we have 1 unit presently.
Is there opportunity for any more?
There is, out beyond our 5-year long-range plan, and this has been something contemplated for, a decade, is a holistic look at the Parks campus. This would involve a little bit of circulation changes to the campus, probably coming off a power plant road at maybe a 4-way stop or something into the campus that way rather than the closer to the Highway 82 entrance. And as part of that, we definitely are envisioning housing, seasonal housing. We rely on seasonal workforce, and so we want to really analyze and look at that. It's out there. That project would be in the 10 million plus range quite easily if we add in housing. We don't have the bandwidth to tackle that right now, and so this project focuses our efforts to solve our problems for the next 15 to 20 years for staff, and then look at the housing and our facility, like storage needs, separately in out years. We are coming to the finish line here. We are on year 3 or 4 of replacing all of our irrigation controllers to a new control system. This allows for greater efficiency, brings our irrigation systems up into the cloud, allows our crews to manage them more efficiently. We are looking forward to wrapping this up next year. It has been a project that's done all in-house. We have done all the work within our existing teams. That's part of the reason why it's spread out over 3 years. Some smaller capital projects. Are there any questions on these?
Where's the snowmaking study for?
Snowmaking feasibility study. So the Nordic Council commissioned a higher level study over the last year. This goes into a little greater detail on 2 specific sites at the Aspen Golf Course as well as adjacent to AVSC on the Moore ball fields. Because those are our assets, both from a land perspective as well as water and water rights, we are undertaking this independent of Pitkin County, who funds our Nordic program, and we're assessing how this might be done under the direction and kind of strong recommendation of the Nordic Council.
What's the strategic plan strategizing?
That's what I touched on in our Compass plan. This is ensuring that our long-range plan aligns with the community. It is also about establishing a 25-year vision for our community on what we're doing with our parks and open spaces.
The Wagner Park brick sidewalk is the north side?
Correct. We are committing some funding to replacing the brick. The utilities department is replacing the electrical infrastructure there. The brickwork is at its end of life, and this is a really great test case for us to try out potential new bricks that might be used on the mall. We're also using this to test hopefully test an hydraulically activated bollard, something we've considered to replace meridian barriers. And so by earmarking a little additional funds to partner with utilities while they do their work, we're getting an opportunity to update the bricks, try out new brick styles, as well as vet whether hydraulic bollards work in our environment.
Why should that continue to be brick?
Good question.
So it's definitely an aesthetic choice for the space adjacent to the parkland. The second thing is that we're hopeful that there's not additional utility disruption, but we're looking at materials because what will happen on the mall is bricks got to get popped for service lines. So let's see what that process looks like of removal and replacement that may happen with those different materials as they expand. So we haven't set a standard yet for the mall brick specs. So that, not just the brick itself, but actually how you install it and what the base requirements are is what I'm getting at. So this gives us a chance to make sure we get that dialed in right. And if the council would prefer that be asphalt or something like that, we can certainly take a look at it. But the intention has been is to maintain that pedestrian connectivity on the north side of the park for folks coming into the downtown core.
Do you have some sense of how much the premium to keep it in brick is versus asphalt?
I don't know that off the top of my head, but I suspect, honestly, brick was probably cheaper than concrete. Asphalt, I would advocate that that's not an appropriate solution there from an aesthetic and design standpoint to be consistent with the mall and other public spaces that we design and maintain.
It's, as of now, it's not consistent with the mall, right? So
It's brick.
but it's a different brick than
It's a
the
different
mall
brick
is,
style,
right?
correct,
So
yeah.
It wouldn't be weird for us to replace it with yet another different brick. I'd be curious to know what the premium over asphalt or concrete, if there is one, might be. I understand there's other things in the scope here than just the repaving, so
Would you like us to work that number up?
that'd be helpful for me.
I don't need it.
I don't need it.
I don't need it.
Saved.
Are there any questions on these capital maintenance projects?
All right. Open up, questions, comments, suggestions? Anybody? I'll start. So a couple things that I just want to bring up. It's difficult in these meetings to push for any change and suggestions. So I just want to put these on the table. I don't know if there's other support from council members. We'll check on that. The fee structure that we started with, talking about those permitting fees. My question would be, instead of a square footage number, why not do an hourly charge? You don't have to answer it. This is what I'm seeing. That fee structure seems to be something that is not necessarily equitable when the review takes time and not space, but we're charging for space. I don't understand that. When it comes to the wildlife coordinator, it seems like there might be some overlap or redundancy along with our downtown manager. Look, I get it. We're all concerned about wildlife interaction and such, but an FTE in this position, when I think that there's other eyes, other agencies that are on this, I don't know how effective this coordinator position is. The natural resource manager, I have questions about as well. I just don't understand the structure of this department being 40-something personnel strong. I just don't understand adding another person in that capacity. So I would just I'll do some more research on my own and maybe reach out to you to talk more. The next items that I have on my list for discussion are things like stormwater and bark beetle. I'm wondering if some of the funds that are available in this fund reserve could be utilized for stormwater and bark beetle programs and improvements. The tree inventory. I guess my questions would go back to you about so you want to do an annual tree inventory, sectionalize parts of town in order to do management practices for the following year in different areas, is kind of how you described it. I don't understand what we would be doing on an annual basis for our urban forest and tree inventory. My assumption is that you're looking for spreading disease, you're looking for weak areas or health issues with some of our canopy, but I just don't understand why the tree inventory would be necessary on an annual basis. And if so, what is the end result there? What comes out of it? What management practices do we implement on an annual basis that would move us to that kind of addition to our workload? I also was wondering if the Parks and Open Space funds perhaps could play a part in the Armory and Connor Park redevelopment. I am wondering about expansion of the community gardens and if funds were available for expanding the community gardens. I had a question around the Aspen Ice Garden offices. I saw you were presenting some of the, I guess, some remodel design of the second floor space at the ice garden is the way I was looking at it. Is that, no?
Lewis Ice Arena.
No, there's a room in the Lewis Ice Arena that is underutilized that we're asking for funds so it is properly utilized without seeking a much larger remodel to
Okay.
accommodate office
Okay,
space needs.
I was wondering if that was the AIG space, which I thought that I'd heard discussions were for different usage than that. So if that's the Lewis, that's great. My question around the pedestrian mall work, I'm really excited for some of this pedestrian mall work to happen, not just for the surface, but for the subsurface and infrastructure improvements that can be made there. So what I was asking you was, are you saying that we want to start with the piece that is across from the Wheeler and such? That's not just a representation of like, hey, this is what we want to start with, but it's the whole project. We want to do it piecemeal, which is good, and I believe we should. When we were looking at plans, we were looking at plans for the redevelopment of both pedestrian mall blocks, and it was just daunting. And so us breaking it apart and doing different sections at a time, I think is a great idea. That bridge, I just don't get it. I appreciate the survey and outreach that went into that. 500 respondents, 70% were saying that they were in favor. I'd love to see more detail. I guess if this is going to come back to me at EOTC as well and stuff, I continue to have questions about it. I think it's a beautiful rendering and concept, but I just don't know if that's the best utilization of $5 million of our money, City Aspen money, and then the total project costs up to 20. Is that what you were saying? Something like that? 23. So it's a big chunk. If Pickens County is looking that direction, I would like to understand it more. But if Pickens County is looking in that direction for a 20-something $1 million bridge crossing there, two bridges. What kind of assistance are we getting with our Maroon Creek Trail? Those just don't jive. If I'm thinking of these situations correctly, which I'm probably not, because that was a lot that you just presented us. My suggestion for next year is maybe we take the parks and related funds on their own evening. The Maroon Creek Trail, did you say we were going to be visiting that on October 30th? Sarah, I'm going to look at you. We've got a big night on the 30th. I don't think we can really do anything about it because we have to have our meeting. Just so council members are aware, we are scheduled not to meet on Tuesday the 31st for two reasons. One is it is a fifth Tuesday, but also because it is Halloween Eve and we were trying to give people perhaps the opportunity to be with family. But the 30th is stacking up on us to be a heck of a night, depending on what else is on that.
Just to clarify, what he's referring to is that you have work session to finish budget from 3 to 5, a regular meeting at 5. You have 2 appeals that you'll be hearing that night. This contract, I've asked them to put on as an action item because of the level of interest there was in the council on it. And then you'll have an executive session for legal advice that night.
And before you leave, we want to thank you for coming by. This is the mayor of Taos, New Mexico.
Oh, thanks.
To see you, meet everybody. Interesting to hear some of your initiatives that you're working on and how similar things are in Taos. We've got a plaza project going on with brickwork. We're doing subsurface work. We just went through a tree canopy survey. I think there's a lot of similarities between Taos and Aspen. And I'm here with the Aspen Institute. So I'll be making a couple trips here to Aspen over the next 18 months, and I hope to connect with you guys. Whatever we have to teach you and whatever you've got to teach us, I think when we can learn and collaborate together, it helps us all out. And so we're very, very similar in Taos and Aspen.
I was in Taos a couple of months ago and made particular note of the plaza project and talking to a lot of the gallery owners around that. How's that coming?
Trust me, I hear about it all the time. The goal for us was to have it open by Halloween, to have our Halloween event back on the plaza. And we're doing it in phases as well. The subsurface first, which we're just about done laying the brickwork, followed by a few phases on surface. But it's been very tough for us because that's the heart of Taos, and investment takes time. And I'm sure, as all of you know, patience is in short supply these days. But
Thank you.
Thank you
We'll
so
be in
much.
touch. Thank you so much for stopping by. Sorry I didn't have more time. Appreciate you. Sorry about that interruption. Anyway, my point was just that October 30th is going to be a big meeting night for us, and I'm prepared, but it could be a late one. In closing, for me, I think that this deserves a lot of big picture discussion. Even when we talk about things like pedestrian bridges, and just to see it as it relates to the whole trail system in a real long-term kind of projection about what we're up to. You know, I want to be clear. This is tax and voter funded and approved. Our community continues to tell us to put money here. We treasure and want to improve continually our parks and open space. But at the same time, there's trade-offs that we have to make when we do our funding choices. Items like Cozy Point and the Equestrian Center out there, and who it's serving and what user groups are using it for the investment that we make into it. This is a lot, and I am supportive of you all and the work that you've done. Mike, thank you for your participation in preparing this. When we get to something as large as this, I have to trust in what you are prioritizing, because I can't get enough information on each one of these items. I can't. We'd be here even longer, and we're not even done with our agenda.
And if I just might add, we spend 2 sessions with our Open Space and Trails Board prioritizing capital. February and March are generally dedicated to our reviews with that board. And so what you see is actually a culmination of their recommendations. This is not solely staff, not by a long shot. So,
I appreciate that, and I'll add something to that. It's directed by council. You're going off of direction that you've gotten from us. So in no way am I like challenging what you've brought to us. Do I have deck shock? Yeah, I do. This is a lot. These dollar amounts are a lot. We have a wonderful, healthy fund balance. So I know that we have the ability to meet expectations. What I'm really trying to add here, and what I was going to say to council members 45 minutes ago perhaps, was, I'd ask council members, think about it outside of this presentation. In your everyday lives and in your everyday interactions, are you hearing from your community other suggestions for parks and open space projects, initiatives, et cetera, things like that? Because we have a ton of opportunity here, and these guys are responding primarily to us, along with the community, along with board input. So I totally respect what you've brought to us. I trust in our capable financial advisement that says, yes, this fund is sustainable, and not only that, but thriving, and that we can afford this, and the prioritization through the city manager's office to say, yeah, you guys are on the right track about what we've heard for direction. So I appreciate it. It is a lot. And like I said, the last thing, I just was wondering about our opportunity for using some of these funds towards things like stormwater, which does have a bearing on maybe our parks and open space in different areas in different ways. Our upcoming, what I see as a true challenge with some of the bark beetle infestations that we're seeing, along with other things. So that's all I want to bring to this conversation, is that I have some questions around what you've brought, but more than that, I just want to wonder if there's other areas that we should be also incorporating into this, the fund uses here. I'll open it up to other council members for comments.
I think Tori hit a lot of the same questions I have. One question I had was that, what is the net gain or loss when we're adding a natural resource manager that was under the APD? Is this over system-wide? Is it one more FTE, or is the APD gonna be decreasing by one?
So I'm going to take, and that's not the natural resource manager, that's the wildlife coordinator, just to clarify. One of the things I noticed when I came here in 2017 was that we had no one, quite frankly, responsible for community education around wildlife. It was very decentralized. The problem I have in the police department now is that I have our SRO supervisor, who has 9 direct reports, also running this program. Jenna Gordon does not have time to do all of that well. And so we had the conversation about where does this FTE need to land in our organization. I chose to get it out of the general fund and put it in the parks fund because of the amount of collaboration with other partners in that education component. It does not relieve the police department from enforcement. It does not relieve the environmental health team from enforcement on the waste management side. Regarding the downtown services, this is one of many, many things on Emmy's list that she goes around and checks in with. She is our friendly face before we get to enforcement. And I would not want to limit her abilities of persuasion if she felt like this is what needed to happen to keep downtown safe for guests and our locals. So this particular position has been batted around now for 6 years before we felt comfortable bringing it forward to you. And that is how we have landed here. It's been directed by me for some time for these departments to figure out a plan to centralize this work for better response to our community.
So it's adding one FTE, but it's relieving the burden for the community resource officers?
It reduces community outreach requirements for the police department. It does not remove their enforcement and ticketing responsibilities. They will still be expected to do that. Is that a fair assumption of the
Yeah, and the PD,
evolution?
The PD is also going to continue to take an active role when there's public safety concerns. If there's a bear treed in the mall, while we'll put the resources we have available, if additional resources are needed, PD will continue that as well.
Yeah, my only comment on the whole presentation is maybe you need more space for offices on campus.
John?
Yeah, I just want to thank your department for updating the park fee changes. I know that was a lot of hard work, but I think it's a more equitable situation now. And I want to say I think this wildlife coordinator is super important to the success of our composting program. I am concerned about how many new FTEs we're contemplating, but I believe this is something we really need, especially, again, for the success of our composting program, which we've all talked about being very important for our community. And the natural resource manager, I think fire mitigation is going to be very important for the resilience of our community. And so I also support that. Thanks.
Yeah, Bill?
Firstly, thank you guys so much. I mean, the Parks Department is just such a integral part of my life in Aspen, and, you know, we interact with, me and my family and friends interact with facilities and things that you oversee on a daily basis and enjoy it immensely. Also struggling with the FTEs, also struggling with the trail project. I'm not sure I fully get how much use it will get over the long term. Tori asked what other requests I hear from my network from the Parks Department, and that includes things like year-round use of the ice garden for enhanced hockey programs. It includes some kind of season extending structures or systems so that we can have competitive youth sports teams like lacrosse and football, baseball. I think those are, and playgrounds. I mean, I think Tooth Park is one that comes to mind. Maybe we have something bright in the future on that one, but that one's probably due for a change. So that's it. I'm generally supportive of all the work that you're doing have shared most of the concerns that Tori expressed so eloquently. Thanks.
Matt, could I request that you dig up the link for when we reviewed the Aspen Ice Garden? You presented some different scenarios for redevelopment, and as Sarah mentioned, that we had chosen at that time the status quo. So if you could dig that up and make that available to us.
Yeah, we're planning on putting together a packet for information purposes, and then we'll be coming back probably in the spring with to revisit the whole conversation.
And then Austin, Matt, can you speak, some of the services mentioned today are covered in your base budget that we are partners on. So like the front of Aspen Mountain, as an example, in our partnership with the Forest Service and the ski company on the bark beetle. Can you just speak to what are some of those other things we're already doing that we're not asking for additional dollars to continue that work?
Yeah, let me jump in on the beetle question, and kind of broadly, I really would like to know, you posted about 7 different topics for questions. Would you like me to respond to those tonight? Would you like me to respond in writing subsequent to this? A lot of those questions I do have answers for, and I just want to kind of gauge where you're feeling we head from here.
No, not tonight, I don't think. I appreciate that, but no. You're talking about stormwater usage for funds, things like that? Beetle, tree inventory?
Tree inventory, armory,
Armory,
expansion of
counterpart.
community garden.
Yeah, all of them.
Yep.
No, let's connect separately. You can,
One-on-one.
So let's just do let's do this as a way that all council members have your responses. I'll work with you offline for that.
Okay. Because one of the questions was about Doug Fir beetle and our response to that. Our department has led, our department initiated a multi-jurisdictional approach to treating bark beetle on Shadow Mountain and Ute Mountain. We continue to do that. We're at year 2. We're heading into year 3. That is a big thing, surprisingly, that we took on with existing staff. And so the natural resource manager position kind of backfills time that we've already committed to that, so that we can continue to do the important work of managing our open spaces and taking care of the plans review process and forestry programs. So all of this is really interconnected. You're spot on. It is huge. We have a ton of work, and we have a great team that works so hard day in, day out to achieve these goals. But when you have funding like this and you have the community priorities, it is a lot of work. And there continues to be new requests that we tackle and say, yeah, we can tackle this.
And I just want to add that to Sarah's point there, not only is that effort on the flanks of Aspen Mountain, but we've been working for the last 10 years with the Hunter-Smuggler Co-op, and when we have prescribed burns, we're involved in those projects. All the pine beetle efforts that went up on Smuggler and Hunter Creek, that was all us with the county and the Forest Service. Just last week, did an all-day site visit up on the Smuggler Mountain, because we're doing a 10-year revisit to the Smuggler Mountain open space plan and all the projects associated with a new plan up there. Fire mitigation's a big part of it. Forest health is a big part of it. We can't do prescribed burns right on the edge of the town, what we call the WUI, the wildland urban interface. And so those are all efforts that are ongoing and have been for a number of years.
So maybe if you could, brief responses in an email, info only, and then you can share it with all of council.
Yeah, happy to do that.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Wow. Thank you.
Well, yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
And last but not least, from the Parks, Rec, and Arts side of things, we've got Jim Pratt, our manager of golf.
Good evening, council.
Good evening.
Hey, Jim.
Thanks for listening to me. I know it's been a long night, so I will do my best to make this direct and to the point. Just to kind of give you a brief synopsis of what the Aspen Golf Club pertains. We have around 56 employees. Of those 56, there are only 2 of us that are year-round. So you'll see one of our only request is coming up is to get a third person on board to help us at the golf course year-round. Annually, we perform around 30,000 rounds, and again, to put that in perspective, that's double amount of every other golf course within the valley, so we are extremely busy. And just as far as our membership, we have around 900 to 1,000 members annually, depending on, 2022 versus 2023.
What did you just say? You're handling more rounds, how many more rounds than other?
It's almost double. It's almost double. If you look at, certainly the private clubs do less rounds than the public ones, but in comparison, as an average, we're doing double the rounds that most of the other facilities are, and they have around a month and a half to 2 month longer season being down valley as well. So it's pretty impressive what we do out there. Go ahead, next one. All right, our Compass wins. Looking back, we are really trying to make an effort to work with our community through our fee and lease analysis and comparisons with other facilities. I'll move on to my next slide for my notes as well. One of the goals that we've always had at the Aspen Golf Club is affordability and accessibility. So we really pride ourselves in continuing that and finding ways to ensure that our locals are able to get, or our primary residents are able to get out there and have accessibility to our golf course. So we continue that effort. The second goal was our whole 417 remodel. This was a project that was put on hold in 2019 due to COVID. We finished phase 1 of it. Here on October 20th, we're meeting with our golf course architect to look at the final stage to complete next spring. Really excited about that. We've been working in coordination with the Nordic department as well to find efforts to benefit both golf and Nordic with this project. And then the final one is our revised golf fleet plan. Myself and our superintendent and our mechanic took a real deep dive into all of the equipment that we have at the property. The average age of all of our equipment is roughly 16 years old, which is a lot older than other places. But we put a plan together with what we have, and we're really excited about what we can show you here in a few slides. Compass highlights for this year. Community engagement on future planning. Again, this is kind of a continuation of the one you saw on the previous slide. We are really committed to involving our community on decisions through public surveys, through listening sessions with our advisory boards, our committees, and also our leaseholders. At the golf course, we oversee 4 leases. The Red Mountain Grill, the instruction portion of things, the Nordic rental, as well as tennis. So we're more than just golf. We're a big asset that's there year-round. Our next goal is ensuring sustainable organizational structure. This really ties into investing into our staff. As you'll see here, we do have a request to hopefully get another staff member on year-round, but we want to invest in our staff. Having only 2 staff members year-round makes it really challenging and puts a lot of strain on the staff members that we do have. We've done an industry comparison and analysis, which you'll see in another slide, that usually at a golf course they have at least a superintendent, if not another assistant or 2. So we're really looking forward to investing in our staff so that way we have a staff for the long haul, not just the short term.
What is this picture depicting?
That is Dominic Lanise, who hopefully is watching me right now. I'm embarrassing him. That is him. We have to go out there in the middle of winter. That is on hole number 9, the green, this last winter. A lot of times in the wintertime, if we have a freeze thaw, what'll end up happening is it'll create an ice layer on top of the ground, and if the grass can't get oxygen year round, then it'll die. Each green right there is roughly $50,000, so another thing that a superintendent would do during the wintertime is go out there to ensure that we don't have that problem. If so, then we have to strategize on what we need to do to make sure that the greens survive through the wintertime. He's in about 2 feet of snow right there.
So he wasn't looking for a golf ball.
He lost more than one, but no, not in that one. That was pretty fun to be out there with him. That was deep. It was really deep. And ensuring stewardship and our financial standards is our third one. We were really excited with our business services group. We put together a zero-based budget. It just helps us know where every dollar is being spent at the golf course. And I think in 2023, it was really a great exercise for us. The golf fund is looking very good. Our revenue is up and our expenditures are down. So the plan has worked. So I can't thank our business services team enough for all of their helps putting that plan together with our staff. And then again, we're looking at updating our fleet records. We're doing a really deep dive with our community on our fees and lease, and you'll see some of the capital project planning that's coming up. Currently, the golf course has a total of 6.4 FTE. Again, only 2 of us are year-round. The bulk of that goes back into the business services group, which is totally there worth their weight in gold for everything they do, whether it's in our financial analysis, repairing a boiler that goes out at the golf course, and then again, the efforts that we get help from Parks and Recreation, whether it's in a remodel or anything out there on the golf course. So it really is a team effort. Golf revenues, again, like I just said, our revenues are doing great. Our course operations, those are primarily the revenue we receive from golf passes and green fees. Our pro shop operations, those are our daily fee or our daily fees and retail operations, and then we have a small portion there for our leases. Again, just to kind of give you an overview, the golf course is an enterprise fund, so everything that we do, we do to support ourselves. We are seeing increasing costs in fertilizers and chemicals. One of our efforts that you'll see here in a few slides is moving more to having electric vehicles, but the cost of those certainly have gone up. And then we just have done a couple lease renewals, thank you. We had our restaurant lease renewal last Tuesday. That'll certainly benefit the community and will also benefit the golf fund. And then we're currently working on renegotiating the instructional portion, which will be completed here in December. And then I already mentioned the fleet management portion of that.
So the other revenues is restaurant income?
On this one?
Yeah.
So yeah, the restaurant would fall under the facilities maintenance portion of that. They're one of the leaseholders.
Okay, thanks.
2024 golf passes, it's an average of around 6.99% overall. We do feel that, we did our survey, and the survey results did show that the community felt that tee times were more challenging this year. So we definitely took into consideration what they're telling us. So we're looking at the caps that we're having for 2024 to be a little less than that, but these numbers that you see here keep up with inflationary rates. Our fee changes are minor. Greens fees going up roughly 5%. The primary one is on the what we would consider a resort guest fee, going up 12.5%. Guest of a pass holder going up slightly. One thing that that we really wanted to we really value our senior citizens because we do have a large number of seniors that play at our golf course. So we were really trying to not impact them because a lot of them do live on a fixed income. So we were really trying to not increase that one. The other fees that you see here, minor, very minor ones as far as cart rental, range balls, rental clubs, those are all going up on average around 2.3%.
You raised the member cart rental a quarter?
Quarter. That is something, it's something that we try not to increase very often, so when we do, it's, the Aspen Golf Club, $24 for a cart rental is fairly high in comparison to a lot of places, so when we do make these increases, we try not to be too extreme with them.
I think you succeeded.
Golf expenditures. The golf expenditures are going up slightly. The bulk of them is from our labor. But one thing that I would like to point out in this is our targeted reserve. The reserve for the golf course being an enterprise fund is the fact that it is staying healthy, which allows us to improve the golf course and be creative with what we're doing out there. So I'm really happy with the fact that that fund balance is staying healthy. All right, the big supplemental request. We are asking for a .3 FTE authority to have a year-round superintendent. This is an industry standard. We contacted every other golf course within the valley and beyond. We also included Vail, Steamboat, and Breckenridge in this, and every single one of them has at minimum a superintendent, if not a superintendent, and a few assistant superintendents. So this request is more of an industry standard. There's a lot of things that would improve the facility by having this position. The next slide will kind of go into more depth of what that is, because the big question is, what's the superintendent do during the wintertime?
I'll just remind council that this is offset with reduction from recreation. So it's a net zero impact, but between two funds.
Thank you. The summers are fairly standard. I mean, everybody can assume that a superintendent oversees all golf operations, all applications, but during the wintertime, a superintendent has a very special job to where they have to be precise in their chemical purchasing, chemical storage, application, mixtures. It requires a certain license to do that. During the wintertime, the bulk of what the superintendent will be doing is getting their recertifications to make sure that the golf course in our community is safe in all of those applications. Also, the irrigation system, ensuring that we are watering, or we're being water conservant with, that's not the right way to phrase it, we are being conservant with our water. And then another portion of that, if you didn't read the paper lately, would be our emergency, or not emergency, it would be response to the facility year-round. It would be nice to have another person who is able, in case of an emergency, in case of a flood, anything like that, to have another person that is able to address the situation at the facility, which we currently do not have. I mentioned our future fleet planning. Our goal is to have 50% of all of our equipment be electric in 10 years. I think it's really cool. We were able to go to the superintendent show last year, and the technology that's out there is astounding. The zero emissions, obviously, but it's also zero fluids. They don't have any hydraulic fluid. They don't have any oils. There are certain pieces of equipment that obviously have to remain to be diesel or gas, but I really think this is a great opportunity, looking in the future, some of the possibilities that we can have at the Aspen Golf Club. The challenges I mentioned earlier, the upfront cost of these electric vehicles are triple the cost of a diesel or gas piece of equipment, but the longevity that we would have them within our fleet would be longer, so we would be able to retain them longer. And I mean, the upfront benefits already, as far as what it does for the environment. But I think, kind of going into one of the slides that Matt was talking about earlier, golf does share storage with Parks and Recreation, so I think this would be a great opportunity to look at upgrading those facilities as well, to allow more electric vehicles for both Parks and Recreation, but also for golf too. So I think it's a win-win for both organizations.
Bless you.
As far as capital projects, there's two of them. We're asking for $45,000 for the golf business plan. We will really just want to kind of do a deep dive to make sure that that how we're spending our funds is appropriate. We're looking at getting a consultant just to review the golf operations from an outside perspective. And then the other one there is part of the golf fleet plan. To be honest with you, the $125,000, that's one greens mower and one piece of a service vehicle, just to haul somebody around to get from point A to point B. Like I said, right now our fleet is on average about 16 years old, so it's just kind of a repetitive replacement within our fleet plan. And then we just have some minor capital maintenance projects. Any questions on this one? Thank you for listening. That kind of is a summary of our Compass goals, supplementals, capital plans. If you guys have any further questions, happy to answer what you may have.
Council members, any questions at this time?
Just one comment.
John?
I'm looking at the slide with the mowers.
Yeah.
Reduce Aspen's greenhouse gas emissions. Goal, 50% of all mowers and equipment to be electric by 2033. That's 10 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I understand there's limitations, but man, I would just wish we could do it faster than that.
We'll put every effort into doing it faster if we have the budget to support doing it. Obviously, we'll do everything within our power to do so. But again, we have to be fiscally responsible. The cost of these are triple what a normal gas or diesel one would be, but it is certainly one of our goals.
No, I understand the cost. I just also am concerned about sustainability and our environment.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
When we were down at the CLEAR meeting
Glenwood.
in Glenwood, John and I attended a couple weeks ago. So there was a vendor out in the parking lot, a local in our valley vendor for this type of equipment. I don't know if he contacted you or not.
Not to my knowledge.
Not to
no.
your knowledge. All right. I'll reach back out to him and prod him again.
Please do.
Yeah, I let him know that we were trying to move in that direction, and, you know, we love working locally, but see what he could say.
Absolutely.
See what I can find. Bill?
Thanks, Jim. Nice to meet you.
You as well.
Are there any additional revenue opportunities at the golf course that you're contemplating or want to contemplate in the future?
The leases that we're currently working on right now are certainly an opportunity, and I think they will definitely help the golf fund. Beyond that, we're certainly always trying to work with the community. It's not always about additional revenue, but also about the what we can provide for our community. So we do the best that we can to, again, make sure that we're affordable and accessible.
Sure, maybe I should have phrased it as, thank you for that.
No,
Maybe
absolutely.
I should have phrased like additional programming opportunities that might come with.
Yeah,
revenue.
absolutely. I mean, I think part of, again, I think the opportunities that we have out there really go into our leases a lot. I think as far as programming, we are working at renewing the lease for instruction, which is a big part of that. I think what we've seen with our surveys as far as programming is we've certainly heard from the communities on what they would like to see, whether it's group lessons, junior instruction, we have a ladies wine and dine, that sort of thing. So we're certainly looking at that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, partially. I'm not a golfer, so
Yeah.
all of what you're
Not yet.
saying is somewhat meaningless to me, but not that it's unimportant, I just can't relate to it. But I know that like private golf courses do some like ancillary type of activity stuff. Obviously, we have Nordic in the winter here, but like, are there other things that maybe can only be done at the golf course for whatever reason that might be interesting to our community that wouldn't conflict with your golf programming, of course, but would be a value add to our community?
I'm going to jump in, Jim. If council wants us to look at that, we're happy to. The instructions we've had is get the most number of tee times possible on there because of the demand, particularly since 2019. And so any of those additional programming most likely will come at the expense of tee times. Again, happy to take any feedback that you want on that. That we made some changes last year as well, Bill, around some of the fees. So as an example, one of the fees that we changed is we were dealing with wedding party bookings, right, to go golfing the day before or something like that. And we really felt that was at the detriment to our locals. If we want to allow more of that, which is at $350 a person per round, but it was definitely a pricing set to disincentivize that kind of use, taking it away from locals.
Got it, yeah. I definitely wouldn't want to do anything to the detriment of golf, but, you know, if there's something that comes up, I would certainly be interested in exploring it.
Absolutely, and if you hear anything from the community with ideas, we're all ears.
Cool.
Yes, we did approve the lease for the restaurant out there. And the comments, you, I think, were nice enough to drop some menus for us.
Yep.
The comments around the council table were very positive. You know, one of the things that I was going to address during that was affordability. I'd had some comments recently from folks that were like, hey, it used to be great, but now prices are rising out there like they are everywhere else. And what I saw in the menu was actually maybe a turning back the clock a little bit on that. There were some great deals in there. A really large menu. Boy, they're ambitious.
They do a great job right now.
You know, I think that it's a challenging spot in some respects, but they've done a great job, and they've really created a following out there. For me, there were two items that I wanted to make sure that were being followed throughout at the restaurant. One, obviously, good pricing. It is a city facility. We may not have cost agreements in their lease, but I think it's understood that we're trying to deliver a reasonable product for locals out there. The other is their efforts towards composting, non-plastic, single-use items, compostable items, and the like. I recognize that, you know, a bottle of Gatorade is a bottle of Gatorade, and it's something that you're going to be hard-pressed not to supply for your people that are coming out and playing. But in any way that the restaurant can green their operations on a leading and progressive edge is fantastic. So I just want to be encouraging to you and your staff to, you know, get the word to them that, you know, we highly value them. We love what they do. And in that, we also want them to be leaders of our community as well in how they present their product. Fleet, I just touched on the fact that there was a local vendor that was interested in contacting you. I'll maybe reach out back to them. And then my last note here was about capital. I think you and your team are doing a great job at the golf course. What I've seen over the last couple of years have been really great energy, real positivity. I think you've addressed some of the community's concerns in a timely fashion and doing your best for pass access and pass usage, while also balancing those fees that you're charging for them. I guess what I'm coming down to is maybe there's some necessary capital needs, and I don't know if that's available from the Parks and Open Space Fund or not. But if there was a overlap there and the ability to be supportive of the golf course in its facilities, I would support that.
Yeah, and I would just add that the Golf Pro Shop is a rec facility, that there is support there. We also look, as was mentioned earlier, at golf projects in ways that it can benefit, whether it be Nordic, tennis, or any other recreational usage out there. So,
And within our long-range plan, we do, there's some exciting things. We do, hopefully we'll be able to look at some improvements to the facility as a whole coming down the road that benefits all of the users, like Austin mentioned. So we are looking towards the future for sure. And then kind of on the capital projects, if I didn't mention it earlier, it's just another reason to have a superintendent as well. All those projects that take place during the summertime don't just happen during the summertime. There's a lot of plan and preparation that goes into that, and the superintendent is a very key part of that.
Thank you so much. And sorry to hear about the latest events that happened out at the golf course. And
you know what, if you guys are okay with it, I would like to say thank you to the police department. They were very helpful. They responded in a very timely manner. So thank you for the Aspen Police Department. They did an amazing job.
thank you.
Thank you, guys.
He said that was last. He said.
Mr. Mayor, I will be quick. It's hard to follow that concise presentation, but I'll be fast as possible. We can skip this slide. How's that for one?
It's a good start.
All right. So Tourism Promotion Fund, this is funded through the traditional 2% lodging tax. That tax is shared between transportation and the the Tourism Promotion Fund. The majority of it comes to this fund. So you can see that it's roughly pegged at about $4.5 million next year. We're expecting about a 1% growth on that revenue stream. Nothing too drastic at this point in time. We've actually had a number of months of softening right now. So in the agreement that we have with our vendor, who is Accra, you all passed a new contract just this year that expanded some of the services under that contract to be funded out of this revenue stream. So it's advantageous to the general fund as a result. Lastly, I'd like to just say that we did have a loan that went out from this fund. We did $200,000 out of the general fund and $300,000 out of the reserve from this fund during COVID to help support additional marketing efforts during that tough time. Accra's already paid about $164,000 out of the $300,000 back. It's supposed to be fully repaid by the end of 2024. They could advance it and maybe pay it off at the end of this year. I do not know, but the end date would be 2024 at this time. Any questions on this fund?
just a brief thought. I don't know if others have any interest in ever discussing this, but I think a lot of the things that we are doing with this money are great things. The dollars that we're spending on marketing Aspen have always made me think. And it's nothing against Acra or personal to Acra at all. It just, is it really what the city should be doing with that money, and is it really what our community needs and wants? So, I love the events that Acra is responsible for. I love the welcome centers. I think those are great things for Aspen. Is promoting tourism the city of Aspen's responsibility? I don't know, so.
Do you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, I'm Eliza Voss, Vice President of Destination Marketing for Acra. Nice to see you all.
Eliza, do you have any idea what percentage of the tourism promotion fund goes to ads
$650,000
out of?
4.5. And we will have a budget presentation to all of you. I believe it's scheduled for December 11th.
So this has been a conversation that goes on a lot, and if you look at the contract and what comes out of it on the right side over there, and then to hear Eliza share with us that $700,000 is really direct to ad placement, if you will. We're going to have longer conversations about this, but I think that that's important information for a lot of people to know, because I think a lot of people have the same questions that you do, Bill. I am looking forward to when we meet up and talk more about this. I've shared with you, I get to see you a little bit more often than maybe other members of council do at Acra meetings and bumping into you as you're pedaling around town. Which I use as an opportunity to talk to you again. I apologize about that. But what I've said is that we, and I represented kind of last council sentiment, is that we're very interested in, trying to use some of those promotion funds here in town with event support and destination management programs and the like. And you've heard that loud and clear, and I think that you've really moved in that direction, along with Destination Think, who came on board to talk more in that direction. We've really departed from that marketing mentality to a management mentality. So when we get together again, we'll have a little bit more detail to kind of let people know how does that actually play out when it comes to actually implementing these funds. Any other comments at this time, guys? Questions? Great.
Thanks, Lexi.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for hanging in there.
My fans are gone.
Next one. Next slide. So the Public Education Fund is really more of just a pass-through process. The school district actually went to the voters and requested a dedicated sales tax to support education in our community. There is a corresponding property tax in Snowmass Village to kind of show their support as well for the local school district. This tax currently is actually going to be projected to be about 80% less than what you see on that screen for projected revenues. We artificially increase our expectations by 20% on both the revenues and the expense side, really to ensure that we have the authority on the expense side to pass through the dollars to the school district. So just so you're aware of that. This is a 0.3% sales tax. We do pass through every dollar except for 2% for an admin fee that was designed per the ballot question. And this is separate from the city's additional agreement with the school district, where we agreed for 3 years to give them a portion of our tobacco tax revenues for cessation programs and others substance abuse type efforts. This tax does have a current sunset date of the end of 2026. I think your book actually showed it as 2025. Apologize for that misprint in there. questions on that. There's not a lot of decision-making really available on that particular
Is
fund.
that something that we're gonna have to contemplate a renewal on?
We won't initiate the renewal. The school district would potentially bring that forward again if they wanted to.
And to clarify this, while the school district comes and makes the request, the city council chooses whether to place the ballot question. City council has the authority not to place it because it's your taxing authority that they are leveraging.
Last fund is the debt service fund. So basically, the way governmental finance or governmental accounting works, we need to have a dedicated fund for any debt that is not in an enterprise fund. So everything you see up here except for that CCEC balance, which is the Castle Creek Energy Center balance of $600,000, resides in governmental funds and not enterprise funds. And those governmental funds are the general fund, the parks fund are the two biggies, basically. You can see up here that we have 50 million projected to be outstanding at the beginning of 2024. The majority of that is related to the last two new public buildings that have been developed. The rest of it is pretty much parks and open space debt. That was debt issued as part of the ballot question that said, can we leverage our sales tax revenue and basically time the needs better than with just the cash flow models. Next page. The actual debt service payments, so principal plus interest in 2024 is expected to be just about $6.5 million. The majority of that, again, is coming from the Parks Fund on the top set of three lines. The series from 2013 has this large payment. Those were actually intentionally timed with some other series rolling off over time. And so what's going to happen at the end of 2025, however, is that almost all the debt service to parks is going to go away and be retired. There is only one issuance that's left. That's that top line. The CCEC loan, which is a direct placement with a local bank, still has $600,000 in outstanding principal. That will be fully paid off at the end of 2 more years as well. And then we're basically left with the 2 COPs for the 2 new buildings. Those have level debt service payments basically for the duration at this point.
Pete, all of this fixed rate debt, or is any of it floating?
There's small movements in the actual payments, but by and large, they'll be within a few $1,000s every year at this point. I mean, the only one that was large was in that 2013. We had intentional balloon payments on the Parks one because of
Right,
your
but the
timing.
interest rate on all of them is
Oh,
fixed.
they were fixed, yes, correct.
We're actually, I don't think, allowed to take variable.
We could potentially in the short term, but not for a long duration.
Great.
What was the original CCEC
Loan?
loan?
It was about, I think, 7 or 8-ish million. And we paid a big chunk so we had to wait 10 years before we could even start paying, advance paying it off. Once the 10-year time frame hit, we actually paid off a couple of million, and we refinanced and placed it directly with a bank to keep the remaining amount until we could afford paying it off.
Did we use it? We don't have a CCEC, right?
Correct. We didn't finish the CCEC project. We did build a lot of infrastructure with those funds.
Oh, the penstock.
Yep. We did have some proceeds left, so some of the proceeds were used to just pay off that big chunk a couple of years ago.
You got a sweet generator thing, turbine thing.
State of the art. Never been used.
Last slide. There you go.
No questions.
Thank you, Matt, thank you. Tell your wife she won.
All right. I will.
I got it. Thank you. Thanks, Sarah.
Please let me know if you have any requests for what's for dinner on the 30th, since you're here a long time.
Better be good.
Something from Red Mountain Grill sounds great.
Tacos again.
They
did participate in the mac and cheese fest. They were one of the
We want to say thank you to Amy and to GrassRoots. We appreciate you. We are going to take Monday and Tuesday next week off, but we will be returning actually for a work session that starts at 3 p.m. on October 30th. Then we have a regularly scheduled meeting that is at 5 p.m. that evening. So please join us here at City Hall, October 30th. Have a good night.
Thanks, Pete.